This evening, work session is going to be on the capital improvement program for 2018 to 2023. Matt, are you doing the presentation this evening?
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Yes.
I have like an input selected on my screen. Thank you. This year we're doing CIP a little bit differently, and this is due to the request of the City Council to start CIP process earlier. So we're starting with a work session in April, and then on May 22nd we'll be going back and presenting it to the Planning Commission. That's because they're required to see if it's in conformance with the comprehensive plan. And then we're not actually approving the CIP until we approve the budget on August 6th. So it gives about 4 to 5 months for citizen input and council direction. Tonight's work session kind of has 3 components to it. I'll provide an overview on the CIP. I'll go through the 2019 through 2023 CIP. And there's a couple projects that we want to make sure we get direction from council on. The CIP has some key components to it, where it starts off where we have staff identify key needs in the community. Then they develop a project scope to address those needs. And then we need to determine costs. That includes not just the initial project costs, but also any ongoing costs, like would impact future operating budgets. And we always have more capital requests than we have actually the ability to fund those projects. So we ask each department to prioritize their capital requests. And then finally, we need to develop financing strategies for those projects. This could include doing some cash, some debt. Essentially, a cash project will have an immediate impact on the budget. Debt might not have an impact right away, but it'll impact future operating budgets through annual debt service payments. And a key consideration is to remember that we need to consider the useful life of the project when determining the most appropriate way to finance it. A couple of terms to understand is when we say capital budget, starting this year, it means 2019 to 2020. That's because we're doing a 2-year budget. When we say CIP, we're talking about the capital improvement program. It's a 5-year plan. This is considered by JFOA a best practice to do and incorporate into your budget document. And then we've recently started a capital improvement element, which gives us a long-term strategic look at how we do capital investment in the city. This graph shows CIP by year. And you can see, in most years, it's around $9 million, or between 9 and 10. But then it kind of spikes in 2021 and 2022. This is actually due to 2 projects. One is the US 56 and I-35 interchange. Another one is Gardner Road Bridge. Those 2 projects alone are estimated to be about $35 million. Some labels are missing on this one. Yeah. This is a CIP by funding source. Basically, it breaks it down by how we're funding each of these projects. One thing to take away from the slide is we have basically $29 million in governmental revenue. What this means is funding sources that are passed through from like federal or state government, and also grants. The other thing to take away from the slide is that we have dedicated revenue sources. The vast majority of our projects have a dedicated revenue source. What that means is when we have like a water force main, it's being paid for by water revenues. Very little is actually paid by tax-supported debt. It's important that our CIP is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. It's actually by state statute. And so when we talk about projects, we talk about them and how they align to these different goals from the comprehensive plan. We want high quality and dependable public services and facilities. We want to maintain safe and efficient transportation network, balanced park system that supports connectivity, projects that support growth and sustainable and protection of natural environment. For high-quality, dependable public services, the first project is reconstruct Celebration parking lot. What we're going to do for this project is we're going to remove the current surface and place a base material, and then put down a new surface on top of it to basically redo the parking lot and make sure it has a long, useful life. This project is about $1 million and is currently funded from the Infrastructure Special Sales Tax Fund. We also have electric and water smart meters. This is a preliminary budget estimate for this. It's about $3 million, $2 million from electric, $1 million from water. And kind of the first step is we have to do a study to see what's the best way to implement replacing all the meters and see which ones need to be replaced. And this will eventually allow us to then contract out the installation of meters, and then we'll be able to read meters, do cutoffs, obtain demand information, and identify outages at the office. The next project, Effluent Force Main Lift Station Water Conservation. The idea behind this project when it was first requested was to basically find a way to use water that's treated by the Kill Creek Resource Recovery Facility and sell that as irrigation water for the Gardner Golf Course or the oil fields. Unfortunately, we're going to have to withdraw this request because we did the payback analysis and it was over 35 years. It didn't really make sense to do that project. But that was the original reasoning why it was originally requested. Substation 3 to West Star Interconnection Project. This involves installing a transmission line source independent of KCP&L Moonlight Substation. This additional flexibility will provide a reliable and reasonable cost product for our customers. The first two projects on this slide is the airport sewer, airport terminal, and FBO hangar. The sanitary sewer has failed at the airport, or the septic system has failed. And essentially it doesn't make sense to replace that septic system if it has nowhere to really connect to, like a new bathroom or the building, because we did a courtesy inspection of the terminal building, and it was discovered that there's significant deficiencies there as well, with electrical, structural, fire hazards, insulation, access, ADA compliance. There's also active water intrusion, significant water damage, and spore growth. It was the conclusion of the Building and Economic Development Department that the vacant portion of the terminal building and flight school should remain closed. That would be less expensive to replace the structures than to repair the entire existing facility. So they're shown as two separate projects, but those projects are linked and they should be done together. The line maintenance division has grown from 5 to 9 people in the last 3 years. The current office space is limited. A new building near Energy Center will be built to house all staff, materials, and equipment. Installation of an anaerobic selector basin to achieve nutrient removal may be required by future operating permits at the wastewater treatment plant. This project will cost approximately $5.85 million. It will only happen if it is mandated by the federal or state government. We're going to be entering into the third phase of our trail reconstruction program. This was funded by Infrastructure Special Sales Tax money. And this third phase includes North Center Street Bicycle Pedestrian Pathway, South Center Street Pedestrian Bicycle Pathway, and the Stone Creek Park Trail. Safe routes to schools project includes sidewalks near Moonlight Road from Warren Street to White Drive. The project fills in gaps of existing sidewalk and trail network. The need to signalize Moonlight and Madison will be driven by traffic warrants. Left turns have been rated as having poor level of service, and we obtain traffic counts annually to see when those signal warrants are met, and when those signal warrants are eventually met, we will have to do that project. Waverly reconstruction from 175th to Madison. It's currently a rural two-lane section with no sidewalks and an open ditches that have flooding and safety issues. By doing this project, we'll be addressing those flooding and safety issues. Moonlight Road rehab. This is a project and if we wait too long, then the reconstruction cost will be greater. But also, this project needs to be done before we can even consider an interchange at Moonlight. Center Street rehab from Main Street to 167th Street. Improvements are needed for this rural roadway section before the project involves a partial reconstruction that needed to be helped to protect one side of the city's main north-south arterials. Failure to reconstruct a section of this road will require the complete reconstruction of this entire road. So essentially, it saves us money to do partial reconstruction right now and wait until the entire thing fails. Center Street sidewalk improvements. This will address existing sidewalk gap on the west side of Center Street where pedestrians are forced to walk in the grass. The project will also provide a continuous sidewalk. This project includes widening of the existing sidewalk on Center Street Bridge. This bridge improvement was identified in the Main Street Corridor Study. We have 3 projects that kind of support the balanced park system that supports connectivity. St. John's Trace project has kind of 2 components to it. One is the land acquisition, and the other one is a neighborhood park development. The park development relies on being able to get grant funding to help fund the project. And essentially, there's been many lots in St. John Trace that have been developed with no park or neighborhood support for residents. The need for this park at this location was identified in the Park Systems Master Plan. Outdoor fitness court. This is kind of a new idea. There's only currently 8 in the nation, I believe, or maybe it was 4, and then they're going to be expanding to about 80 in the next couple of years. And it's actually a low-cost park improvement that can provide a unique quality of life amenity for a community. The outdoor fitness court is a training system that uses body weight. The system features a series of full-body exercises for people of all skill levels. In addition, there's an app for smartphones for custom workouts, personal trainers, and music streaming. Promoting health and fitness in our community is a huge draw for new residents and developers. In 2017, the National Recreation and Parks Rec Association study 85% of Americans consider high-quality park and recreation amenities as an important factor for choosing where they live. We have 3 projects that kind of hit 2 categories. They support growth in the community, but they also enhance our transportation network and provide for safety and efficient traffic flow. We're currently underway on I-35 and Gardner Road interchange. We're doing the design this year. We have an open house coming up tomorrow, actually, at the library from 5:30 to 7. So I'd encourage the public to attend that open house. And you can come and go as you want, and there'll be kind of drafts of the different designs available at the open house. And then the construction of the interchange is scheduled for 2019. Then the 2 projects listed in red, or in green, Gardner Road Bridge over I-35, and then I-35 US 56 interchange. Like I mentioned before, these 2 projects total $35 million. We're not going to do these without grant funding. And most likely, we'll not get funding for those at the same time. So it's kind of inflating our capital project costs because it's unlikely both are going to happen at the same time. But we want the public to be aware that these are 2 important projects, and we are actively seeking grant funds for those projects. Other projects that support growth, Nike Lift Station, Force Main. Actually, all of these projects on this slide have been identified in our wastewater master plan as projects that need to be done. The master plan was completed in 2017. The Nike Lift Station will serve a proposed growth area between South Gardner Road, South Moonlight, 191st Street, and West 199th Street. The wastewater treatment plant, New Gravity Interceptor 2, will serve the growth area east of Four Corners and north of 175th Street. The south parallel relief lines, Phase 1, will address current capacity issues with existing lines. And similar to the project above, the wastewater treatment plant parallel relief lines will address capacity issues with existing lines as well. The East Lift Station improvements, Phase 1, will help address capacity issues and should be cheaper than building another storage tank. Now we're getting to some projects that we need direction from council on. These projects currently have no dedicated funding source. Jamestown Open Channel, south of Madison, is a stormwater project that was identified in the 2009 Watershed Master Plan. There's no HOA for this area, and the Public Works Department has historically maintained this drainage channel. The project has no dedicated revenue source, and it's currently projected to be funded out of the Debt Service Fund. The annual principal and interest payments would be made using general tax levy dollars from that fund. Staff recommends updating the Stormwater Master Plan, establishing a dedicated revenue stream for identified stormwater projects. Is it the council's will to use tax-supported debt to make this stormwater improvement? Another option is to update the Stormwater Master Plan first, then establish a funding plan for identified stormwater projects. The airport, terminal, FBO, and hangar building. The cost is approximately $735,000 for both projects. The airport fund cannot absorb these additional costs. The airport is already being subsidized by the general fund, and there's no FAA grant funding available for these projects. That's because the FAA is placing a higher priority and is requiring the city to buy land in 2018 to protect its runway protection zone. That land purchase will use up our FAA grant funds available for the next few years. Staff has created a placeholder for these improvements in 2013, when additional airport revenues or grants may become available. The city currently charges hangar rents that are below most airports in the region, and we have a long waiting list for our hangars. As a policy decision, does council want to move this project up to 2019 or a different year? Should we subsidize this project using general fund revenues or bond and interest revenues? Or should we raise hangar rates? Another option is to do a combination of both. It's a community asset, so maybe the community invests some into those improvements, and then we also raise the rents a little bit to help make sure that the people using it at the airport are also contributing. So the burden's not falling on any one group. And finally, the outdoor fitness court. This project has no dedicated funding source. Compared to other projects, this project is a low-cost opportunity that could provide a unique quality of life amenity to help our community stand out in the metro. The project was presented to the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, where it received a lot of positive feedback. Although this project has no funding source, we could leave it as a placeholder in 2022 and actively pursue grants, and it could be a great opportunity for sponsorships to help fund the project. So we would like direction on those 4 projects, and also any questions or comments you have on any other project.
Great, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Any questions from the audience for Matt? Yes.
So you want to open it up to your public or first? Or?
This is a work session,
Okay.
so
No.
I mean, if the public wishes to weigh in, they can signal me in.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to have
I see
them
Mr.
come
Cox
up and
in
speak.
the audience.
Yes, I received Adam's email, and I let him know that I would be bringing his concerns, but during my questions, so. Anyone on the dais?
I had just a couple of comments on the airport. The direction, you're looking for direction, whether or not to move it from 2023 to 2019. The couple of things. One, the airport is an existing city asset that is failing miserably. The buildings are uninhabitable. That's not, it doesn't sit well with me. we shouldn't have any buildings in our charge that are in that state, anywhere in the city, regardless of their utility or their use or their intended purpose or whatever. I think that's unacceptable. And I realize we just took the airport over in 2016, I think, from the Airport Association, so it's really not an issue of neglect on behalf of the city or staff. It's more, this is what we inherited and this is what we've got to roll with. But the problem is, we own it now, and we can't let it fail further or fall into further disrepair. In other words, I feel like we have a very clear responsibility to restore what's there, at least at a minimum, if not build upon it. But I recognize that $500,000 is not an insignificant amount of money. So I would propose, if we're going to move it up, that we would do some combination of bonding and raising of rates and also possibly looking for a public-private partnership arrangement with for the terminal building and or the hangar. I mean, the hangar, the large hangar that we're talking about, is currently being used by a business. So a business is being run out of it. And it's, as far as I can tell, it's a fairly successful business. We have 100 hangars there, I think, isn't it 100? Somewhere around there. And a waiting list of folks waiting to get their aircraft in our hangars. So, yeah, the question is, are there more, is there other opportunity for us to build, to expand on the current hangar that we have, build a larger hangar so we can have more than one FBO in it, to help us kind of fund this thing.
So Lee, I would ask a couple of questions of, I guess, you and Matt. How would you prioritize between the airport sewer and the airport terminal and FBO? Well, I don't see them as all the same. I see them as a prioritization opportunity.
Yeah, I do too. And I would say that at a very minimum, we have to get some sort of sewer facility, some sort of bathroom facility there for transient pilots to use. That's a minimum expectation of anyone flying in and buying our fuel. You don't pretty much go anywhere in a light aircraft and fill up your fuel tank and not have a place to relieve yourself. There's porta potties are not something I've ever encountered as a private pilot outside of Gardner Airport. So for me, that's I don't know. This little airport that we have is a point of pride in our city. It's part of the reason that my family even moved here. I'm a pilot. I live and work in the aviation community, and I like being between two really cool airports. There's New Century on the one hand, which is corporate aviation. That's kind of the world that I work in, and then the other hand is Gardner Airport, which is the hobby side of the business, which is also something I work in, but I also partake of. So it's very, and it's an ambassador to the city for pretty much everybody in the metro area. So
The next question I had was, with a $700,000 shortfall in those two line items, what's your proposal or suggestion for increased, or what's the amount that you're suggesting that we increase hangar rates? And how would that affect the shortfall?
So I really think, and forgive me for jumping in here, Matt, but I think that first of all, just so you know, that 495 is, it's a placeholder number. And I have been talking to our main tenant there, the mechanic in the hangar, who took over a business that's been at that airport a long time, and really he fits in a fairly niche market. He's above the prices of the guys that do stuff out of hangars, yet he's below the folks at maybe New Century that have several mechanics working for them. So, so it is a placeholder. As far as raising the hangar rent for these projects, and the wastewater in particular, we had discussed that at previous airport board meetings, and they really felt like it should be the city paying for the whole thing. Now, I think that ends up being really a policy decision on, that needs to have direction from council. In regards to the airport terminal building, that line item is really the flight school building and the terminal building all, lumped in together. The flight school building has the outdoor facing door for the restrooms, and it's one that's in really bad shape.
I understand all that,
So-
Michael, but I'm asking, what is the recommendation of the cost, the increased cost in hangar fees?
In the hangar, I mean, it really, again, it's a policy decision on, does city council want to raise hangar rates for these projects, or do you want to,
I guess
use other sources of
in order to make that
funding?
decision, though, I think it would be important to know what the rates would be. What are we proposing? What's the analysis? How much, we know how much money we need, but how do we get there?
Has there been a rate study?
Yeah.
Right, so it was identified that we're lower than some of the surrounding.
Correct.
By how much?
Right.
That's the question, right?
So we do have a 2016 hangar rate study. We've raised hangar rates for 2017. I believe we have 5 different hangar rates, and there is only one that's above the low range of the surrounding areas. So there's only one particular rate that we have that would fall in within the averages of the others. So that's something I can certainly pass along as far as an infrastructure memo or something, the existing hangar rate study.
Well, what I'm trying to do is determine what that recommendation is, and I get that it's policy, this is policy governance, I understand that. But I'm just trying to understand that so that I can help prioritize sewer over terminal and hangar, because I think that could drive that, to Lee's point. Second of all, I agree with those guys and gals out there that it's my opinion, and I've been out there, and I really do think that we may have instigated the sewer issue when we were out on that playground and moving stuff around and so forth. But
And I would totally disagree.
I understand your position.
Respectfully so.
No, respectfully, I agree that we disagree. But nonetheless, I'm just trying to determine what kind of cash flow we have versus what we have in the bank versus everything else that we need to do up here. So that's why I'm interested in that study.
And I'm going to weigh in here real quick. I thought that on the 2016 rate study for the hangar rates, we were doing an incremental increase in 2017, but that we were going to revisit those rates later and see what adjustments would be needed. And I don't think that ever happened. And so I was wondering what, where we were on that as well.
And I would be careful, I mean, we have to be cautious about this too.
Yes, I agree.
Because when we're comparing our hangars to other hangars in the area, there are amenities that these other facilities offer that we don't offer. So we need to be careful in how we do this and make sure that if we're going to make a raise, we are going to make significant improvements, especially in the sewer portion of this
Well,
thing.
I think that we can't raise the rates without implementing those improvements. I
Right.
mean, that's the whole
Yeah.
point. And I think it's going to end up being a mix of city funds and higher hangar rates, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that you can raise the hangar rates enough to be able to do what we need to do out there.
So I'm curious about if we can see the studies and the analysis that says that the building is at a point beyond repair. Is that available to us? Can we take a look at that stuff?
You know, I can see what's available on that, and as far as if the form from Building and Codes is sufficient on that. And we also do, so coming up here in the next couple months, our fire district will be doing inspections out there as well. And so, you know, hopefully that will give us even more information.
And I was looking into airport grants and things, and I'm not sure that any of this would be covered in the airport improvement project. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Both of these projects, as far as like our FAA grant funding or any competitive FAA grant funding, they would not qualify.
Well, my suggestion you're looking for direction, Matt, I would put airport right up there, number 1, number 2. And then with the data that Mike and his team are going to provide, we can take a look at terminal and FBO and maybe wiggle around on the 2023, but that's where I would propose the priority be.
Yeah, I think we could find definitely some additional resource, monetary channels for the terminal and FBO hangars, whether it's sponsorships or whether it's some sort of special assessment or something like that we could do. But the sewer, I mean, that's a sunk cost. I think it's already sunk now as it is. So we need to get that done.
And you know, am I correct in assuming that we can install that regardless of what we decide to do with the building?
As far as the sewer itself, yeah, the main sewer line definitely. You know, the issue right now is if I had the main sewer line today, I have no restroom to hook to it. You know, we have talked with the VAA out there, and they're considering putting in a restroom at their facility in the future, and have offered their assistance.
And this would be the recommended solution from Public Works would be the gravity line, correct?
So it's basically $240,000 whether we rent a gravity line to the existing, where the existing bathroom is in the terminal building, or $240,000 to run a sewer line to the proposed facility at the VAA. Okay. Same distance, basically.
I just wanted to jump in. To dovetail on what Councilman Moore said on the airport improvement fund dollars. You are right. I've done quite a bit of work on the KCI project, and you know, terminal facilities are generally ineligible expenses for air improvement. They really look towards airside improvement, like runways, you know, what Michael was talking about earlier in terms of approach zones and things like that. So.
And that 240 that's listed here, that also includes temporary holding tank for the existing.
The 240 is really just the sanitary sewer line and the lateral lines, and not a facility.
But that holding tank that I think you mentioned to us in the Friday minute memo, that's a...
That would be an interim solution. And,
correct.
And again, you know, if we're installing the line and we have no existing facility, there's no reason for the interim solution.
Okay.
The way I see the airport is, so the airport, I liken it to the pool and the golf course, right? It's a city asset, so we own it, we need to maintain it, but it's also something that a certain percentage of the residents use. So the sewer is something we need to maintain. We have the manpower, we have the infrastructure to do so. That's on us. Improvements to the terminal are maybe some on us, but I'm going to look more towards the private industries and the users of those terminals, those fees to help with that, offset it. Just as I would expect, you know, I know we're talking different things with the golf course, but we have an initial investment here, and then we're basically saying, that's on you golfers, right?
Right.
To maintain it. So same kind of thing, we just spent money on the pool for the filter, but the maintenance to some degree is being offset by the pool user fees, right?
Should
I
be.
would love to know percentages for those different items as to how much one is subsidized by the general fund versus no. But I feel like the sewer is something we have to do as city. And then the other is, it would be nice to investigate what we can do with either another business or sponsorships, also the fees for the terminal hangar, or for the hangars, et cetera.
I think this terminal hangar that's ready-made for a public-private partnership. I think it really is. If we can find somebody who's a facilities manager who manages these kind of facilities, who could come in very similar to Great Life and help to build some of those facilities. The
How does that coexist with FAA grants and so forth?
Well, again, it's terminal
Yeah.
facilities, not airside approaches
Okay.
or tarmac or any of those things. We're talking about terminal improvements.
We just don't want to jeopardize the grants that we have.
Yeah, it wouldn't,
Yep.
it wouldn't have impacted at all.
Okay.
And I would also say, you know, I would recommend that you be mindful of the position that we could possibly put our existing tenant in. He is a well-liked and very highly qualified individual from my understanding.
I did have a question about the Jamestown Open Channel. I'm very familiar with that particular issue because I was residents were going to me back in 2013 when I was running for council back then about this open channel. Very, very familiar with this. Back then, though, when I was discussing this with Cheryl, we talked about doing something with a out of debt financing, but that we would go back to the residents to assess them for those repairs. And just basically assess each one of those individual homes because of the fact that we are doing it on private property. We're fixing an issue that was not caused by the city, it was caused by the developer that was originally there. And I think that my discussions with the homeowners when I talked to them were that they were amenable to something like that. So if that's changed, that's, I think we need to go back to them and ask them about that. I mean, even if it's a 50-50 split, we need to be able to offset the cost of the city for making those improvements. And I believe the one that we had talked about was actually putting in a culvert initially, is that correct?
The study does show an open channel.
Yep.
We have looked at culverts in the past. I believe there may be some issue with being able to accommodate the 100-year flood if we put that in
The flow would be too fast.
enclosed. If we put that in an enclosed system, I believe there's some issues with meeting the 100-year flood requirements. As far as homeowner participation, that's something that this is the first I've heard of that, and it could potentially be looked at. I'm not sure if that type of project's eligible for a benefit district type improvement, but certainly can look into it.
Yeah, the reason why I asked this is because, and I think that a constituent made it clear to me, it's like, this is not the only place in town where we have serious stormwater issues. And we had some in Parma, and we made those changes in Parma, but I don't want to set the precedent that, when there's problems in a community that does not have an HOA, that the city would just basically pick up the entire tab for those improvements. I mean, that's a pretty costly, proposition. Laura's what?
Having a stroke, having a thought.
A benefit district is at the petition of the landowners.
Yes.
So 51% of the landowners. Just before you go real far down that money trail, something to keep in mind. You can't just say, and so it is.
Oh, no, I totally get that. But I think that that's something that we would probably want to make clear to them. We'll give a portion of this, but you guys have to get together and
So
create a
one-
benefit district.
One question that this created for me, because I'm not really familiar with all of the permitting and everything that happens with when the plot of land is platted out. What went into, what goes into this plan to plat the property and make sure that drainage is there and all that that needs to be there? I mean, I know that the city does that, and that's part of a lot of the hoops that a builder will have to jump through in order to get approval to start building homes. Is that where, and if there is any culpability at all, is that where we would find it as far as the city's concerned?
You know, even at that, yes, the builder prepares, you know, the plats, the drainage reports, the easements, the stormwater conveyance, and the city reviews those, but it's still the developer's engineer's design. You know, the city's just reviewing them for compliance. And then also stormwater detention requirements, erosion control requirements are part of that development process. Now, this particular development was back in 99, 2000, somewhere in there, you know, and I haven't gone back and reviewed any of the records or any of that type of thing.
So it's not it's not part of the approval process that they have to go through then?
This is where we shift departments. So, and we work together on these things quite frequently. So yes, sir, we do review those. And the planning, we do have the requirement, as you stated, for both traffic studies and stormwater detention studies, and then those are reviewed by our consultants and go through our engineering for approvals. So we do that process through the platting process, through platting and through final plat. As things develop, if they did not plat the entire property at one time and they change things, you could run off with excessive runoff due to a change in what was originally planned. So things can change over a period of time if you don't develop everything the first time through on property. During this time period, the city was undergoing a tremendous growth spurt, and there was a tremendous amount of work going on, and so I don't have those records actually in our office. Any records that from that time period have been mothballed, so to speak, in the salt mines, and we would have to dig out anything that you would want us to research in this particular category. But we do have a process. It is closely followed. There are approvals required, and there are studies done and reviewed.
So I guess the point of my question is, what is the point of the approval ultimately? What are we seeking? When you approve a drainage plan, for example, what are we approving? Are we we're just saying that you jumped through all of the hoops, you've done all of the studies that you said you would do, and we approve that you did all of those things, and we're saying that you can now move forward because you supplied us with all of these documents and we've looked at them and they appear to be in order. That's what we're approving? Or are we saying the design that you've put forth, our engineers have looked at, we've decided this will work? Or is that, I mean, see what I'm saying? Is it one or the other? Which one is it? And I'm just doing this because I want to learn.
Yeah, and that there is a fine line between those two different things, because on one side, you're approving the construction of something by the adoption of the plans that they've supplied. And on the other side, you're preparing for that construction. And we do everything up to the prep side, making sure everything is platted and kept track of. And then it gets transferred to engineering and our consultant for approval review. And then once they approve it, then it still has to be constructed, and it still then has to be accepted. So it's not until we get to the acceptance part, I think, that where we've actually passed judgment on what was designed and approved, and we've said, yes, this will work.
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
And again, I want to make the point that, you know, when it comes to stormwater issues, we have significant stormwater issues. And a lot of those areas are areas that were built around the same time. So between 1996 and 2001, you know, that's a lot of the issues.
And, you know, I think it's a really good time for me to plug that, you know, I do believe that the city needs an updated stormwater master plan.
I agree.
And that would also take a look at prioritizing projects, looking at our policies, and then looking at impact fees and being able to take care of some of those improvements.
I agree. I mean, I get emails on a pretty regular basis from folks that every time there's a heavy rain, their yard floods for 3 days.
I believe that this 2009 study that Jamestown was identified in, I believe this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is only the second project that we've actually looked at. The first being 175th and Waverly. And then also, you know, there's several recommendations in the final chapters of that as far as we need to review our policies, we need to review our stormwater utility and potential fees.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, is how often should we do that, Mike? So I agree with you on that, so that we can stay ahead of the flood as much as we can.
Michael, don't we have to change our requirements here when we become a first-class city anyway? Don't some of the requirements for stormwater become more stringent?
You know, we're under the MS4 permitting now, and as we're moving forward through that process, our permitting is becoming more stringent. I'm not sure if it's related to the city class or not,
Okay.
but as much as our permit.
Okay.
We're working on an updated stormwater management ordinance to comply with NPDES. We've been working with my office with Tim McEldowney, so that should be coming to you probably within a month or so.
Okay.
And then the outdoor fitness, I didn't know if we were going to discuss that. I support healthy lifestyle, and I'd be interested to know how those other 8 cities that have this outdoor facility, how they financed it, whether it be through grants or what have you. But compared to everything that we've talked about that's in front of us now versus the $40.5 million over the next 4 years that we need to invest, taking out the interchange and roads and Waverly and Bridge and all that jazz, I don't see that as a priority personally.
I mean, I don't mind the placeholder, but if we have to use any kind of debt financing or general fund money or anything like that to subsidize this, I don't see it necessarily.
Well, it's a want, not a need. I mean,
It is.
there's
Yeah.
plenty of opportunity for fitness.
I see that as an opportunity for either a sponsorship or a grant, and
Correct.
leave it as a placeholder, but definitely the last on that list.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I've got a couple of items that weren't on this list here, but ones that constituents had a question about. One of them was the Moonlight Madison signals. There was some feedback that I received that basically it's becoming difficult to traverse that area already with lights. And we had another light not too far away from the light at Lincoln Lane that might cause some traffic congestion issues. And then about smart meters. We'd like to get some more information on the smart meter program and exactly how that's going to be funded and what kinds of meters we're talking about here. Thoughts?
Good evening. The smart meter project involves the electric meters and the water meters. Originally, a similar project was proposed several years ago. Due to the expense, it was not implemented. The meters will be, based on the information I have, will be AMIs. So you'll have the power meters that will be sending information to a collector, and the collector will send the information to the utility building. So they can read the actual energy usage or water usage. The purpose of the smart meters, among many things, one is that you can actually read your meters real time. You can use it to project demands, usage. You can use them for a cutoff or shut off of the meter remotely without seeing somebody. And the water is pretty much similar. I have a placeholder basically, but the idea was to do the engineering study in 2019 and do a full implementation in 2020. Now, there is another option that you can do the implementation several years, but I don't see any benefit doing it that way. So it is to do the preliminary engineering and design in 2019 and the full implementation in 2020.
Gonzo, is there any volume discount that we get if we do a full implementation after that analysis from the vendor?
I'm not sure, but I'm pretty certain that, yeah, there might be some savings if we do a full implementation.
We should have some amount of leverage for that number of homes.
It's possible.
Okay. Would that also be implemented on the commercial side or just residential?
It will be residential and commercial.
Okay, so both.
And what we're seeing is that this will basically be paid for out of development funds from...
Yes, sir.
No, it would not be.
I'm not.
Oh.
You can do whatever you like, you're the mayor.
Oh, I wish that were the case, but I can't.
It's not the case.
It'll be funded out of the enterprise, the electric fund.
Yes, all right. Okay. Excellent.
Any other questions?
I have no other questions. I would be willing to open the floor for public comments if anybody would like to make some comment on the CIP. It's your chance, guys. Okay, if you have any questions, comments, feel free to send them to one of us on the dais, or you can also send them to the, assuming that you guys would be willing to take questions. With that, we have about 7 minutes. We'll go ahead and stop the work session. We'll be back in for the meeting in about 6 minutes. Thanks.
Oh.
Todd, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear us okay?
Very well.
Okay. We're gonna go ahead and mute for the next few minutes until it's over, until we start the council meeting. Is that okay?
All right.
What is this?
Hi, Todd.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear
Yes, we
you.
can hear you, Todd, thanks.
Great, thank you.
All right, it's 7:01 in Gardner, Kansas. I'm going to gavel the city council meeting to order. Would you please rise with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As you can tell on the dais, we have 3 members of the council here. However, we do have a quorum for, we have Todd Winters, Councilman Winters on the phone. Councilman Melton could not make it. He is sick, very sick. He didn't want to infect anybody. So that's where we are right now. We're going to start the agenda with public hearing. Consider holding a public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments to a request for a waiver of the distance limitation to allow for the sale of cereal malt beverages within 200 feet of a school, church, or library during the Festival on the Trails event to be held June 8th and 9th, 2018. Amy. Okay, so basically it is up here for the public hearing. I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Gorsuch, second Moore, that we open a public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Any abstention? We are opening the public hearing. If anyone wishes to make public comment on this item, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. With no one coming forward, do I have to entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Moore, second Baldwin, that we close the public hearing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The public hearing is closed.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
While I was in the peanut gallery, a number of our fine constituents were complaining that we couldn't be heard. And I know some of you want to be heard more than others, so I would suggest that we speak into our microphones.
Yeah. Correct. Thank you for that point, Councilman Gorsuch. Public hearing item number 2, consider holding a public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments to a request for a waiver of distance limitation to allow for the sale of cereal malt beverages within 200 feet of a school, church, or library during the Smoke on the Trails barbecue competition to be held September 28th and 29th, 2018 at Celebration Park. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Moore, second Baldwin, that we open the public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Public hearing is now open. If you have comment, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. With no one coming forward, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Baldwin, second Moore, that we close the public hearing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstention? Public hearing is now closed. Public hearing number 3, consider holding a public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments to a request for a waiver of distance limitation to allow for the sale of cereal malt beverages within 200 feet of a school, church, or library during the Craft Beer and Wine Festival to be held September 28th, 2018 at Celebration Park.
So moved.
Second.
Motion,
Gregorczyk?
yeah, second Moore, that we consider holding a public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstention? Public hearing is now open. If you have comment, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. With no one coming forward, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Moore, second Gregorczyk, that we close the public hearing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Public hearing is now closed. All right, presentations. Presentation item number 1, we're going to receive presentations from outside agencies regarding the 2019 and 20 budget requests. Laura Gorley, good evening.
Good evening. I'll just give you and the audience a very brief rundown on this. As you recall, we're doing a 2-year budget, and the Gardner-Edgerton Chamber, Southwest EDC, Gardner Township Board representing the cemetery, and the Gardner Historical Museum are all in attendance tonight, and we'll be here to discuss their requests with you. I would like to remind the citizens and the governing body that historically, the Chamber and the museum are funded for the Economic Development Reserve Fund, or otherwise known as the Transient Guest Tax Fund. And from time to time, we've also funded the Southwest EDC from there, and that was last done in 2013. I will remind everyone that the cemetery does not qualify for anything other than the general fund. Also, I'll remind everyone that per Charter Ordinance number 18, the development of the Economic Development Reserve Fund is actually done by a committee of the mayor, council president, city administrator, park and rec director, and representatives from the EDC, chamber, and the lodging industry. And they'll meet in the morning, so everybody will hear the governing body's thoughts. And with that, I can stop. You may obviously weigh in with your input, make suggestions, but I don't believe you can mandate in this case. So I do not have an order in particular. I believe that can be for you too.
Actually, I believe we have a list of these agencies within the council action form, and I'd be happy just to go through that list.
That's fine.
So we will start with the Gardner-Edgerton Chamber of Commerce. I believe that Jason Camus, who's the president of the chamber, is here. And good evening, Jason.
Good evening. Thank you guys very much for having me tonight. I'm going to move through some highlights and really just capture some of what's been going on with the chamber, and then also a little bit about our request. Catalyst, convener, and champion, and that's what the chamber is, and that's what the chamber does. And that's something that we have been looking into. What is the chamber, and what is the chamber in our community? And I'm happy to say that we embarked on a strategic planning process earlier this year. Thank you to Councilman Baldwin, Councilman Gorsuch, Mayor Shute, and Cheryl for being part of that. But that process has been great for us. We've had, I think we had about 35 different individuals who participated, City of Gardner, City of Edgerton, USD 231, as well as a number of business community, and some of the general community. And we've got some exciting stuff coming down the pipe, and I'm really happy to say that. We've seen some significant opportunities come our way. We've taken advantage of some, and I think there's some additional ones coming in this direction. And what we've gotten out of this strategic planning so far is we're about business growth, championing business growth, and community collaborations. It's very straightforward. In the next couple months, I look forward to presenting to you a document that will at least give you an idea of what are some of the goals, the action steps, and the timeline that the chamber hopes to accomplish things in the future. I did bring a list of highlights. I'm just going to go ahead and pass these. I'll let you pass one down there. Basically, I wanted to go back 3 years, and I don't want to rehash a lot of the, what we'll call maybe some of the rougher years for the chamber, but since 2015, we've seen 70 new investors in the chamber, worth over $30,000 of investment. We've done 20 different ribbon cuttings for new businesses coming to town, and been involved in many more. And we've seen revenue growth of over 100%. Our budget in 2015, or our revenue that year, was $86,000. Our revenue last year was $180,000. So we're on the upswing, and we're making great progress here in the community. But the last year has really been, just been a booming year. Obviously, it's been a booming year for the community, but for the chamber as a whole as well. For the second straight year, we qualified for a Chamber of Commerce of the Year through the American Chamber of Commerce Executives. And to do that, you have to score above average in key performance criteria, things like membership growth, membership retention, and a positive balance sheet. We distributed over 9,200 copies of the Gardner Edgerton GE magazine, as you've seen, and that's gone out to all of our residents as well as 2,000 new and prospective residents and businesses. We've reached over 1.5 million impressions on social media, and that's just the reach. Our engagement is probably 3 times the industry average. We do a great job of reaching our community and our business community. Our web traffic, you can see on there, 28,000 unique visitors, and you know, to a lot of people you'd be like, well, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to go back and compare it to 2013 when we had 9,000 visitors to our website, unique visitors. So quite a bit of growth there. We average about 100 referrals to businesses on a monthly basis, and that can range from anybody calling for just a phone number for a coffee shop down the street to somebody looking for a landlord or a potential place to live. Last year we distributed over close to 1,000 new resident bags, both in Gardner and Edgerton, which is really a cost of new resident bags in and of themselves aren't a big deal, but it's a cost-effective way for our businesses to reach new residents, and it's a great way to welcome new residents to the community. Our events continue to evolve. We did a women in business breakfast. We started a new business luncheon. Our food truck frenzy was really popular. We kind of took a chance on that. We had close to 2,000 people attend those 2 events last year, and I look forward to a couple more of those this year. And we now have close to 400 businesses in our database. And when I say comprehensive database, that's not just members, that's businesses throughout Gardner. Those are businesses in Gardner. We have another 75 or so in Edgerton, and as well as another 60 plus at New Century, because we do maintain a full business database in the community. And finally, one of the things that I think is really significant, because we've made such significant gains, the Chamber Board just recently decided to enact a financial reserve policy, which I think is a significant step for us, you know, considering where we've come from 5 years ago and had some rough years where we had to take out loans to pay our bills at the end of the year. We're embarking on an opportunity and the ability to withstand and maybe weather economic downturns in the future, and at some point we look forward to having a cushion in there that will protect the Chamber and protect the business community in the years to come. I do have a lot of Chamber Board members here tonight, and none of them are going to want to come up and say anything, but I want to recognize that we tried to bring out some of our supporters so you understood that this isn't just Jason up here speaking on behalf of the Chamber. We have 200 businesses, give or take, nonprofit organizations that are members, and they support the Chamber financially. They support the Chamber with their time, such as this evening. So my request for 2019 and 2020 is a little bit different, and we have a historic opportunity for the city of Gardner that we have not had in many years, if ever, with the new Hampton Inn and Conference Center moving in. And when that opens later this year, that will be a big opportunity for economic growth in our community. But that doesn't just happen. We're not Disney World, we're not Branson. And a lot of times when we think of tourism, that's what we think of, you know, and I hear it all the time. Oh, tourists don't go to Ottawa, Kansas. Oh, tourists don't go to Merriam. Well, I would argue that maybe in what we consider a traditional sense of a tourist might not. However, travel-related spending is huge. And that's what we want to capture as a community, because that leads to economic growth for our existing business, and it also leads to economic growth for potential new businesses, as well as sales tax revenue for the city and so on. My recommendation tonight is what I will present to our committee tomorrow morning, and that is that we move down the line of a formalized in some sort of a Convention and Visitors Bureau. And what I'm recommending in terms of funding is that we take half of what comes into transient guest tax in the future and put that money aside for tourism marketing in a Convention and Visitors Bureau. And a lot of people don't know what a CVB is, and so what I'll say is the idea is an organization that promotes the development and marketing of a destination, focusing on convention, tourism marketing, services. There's a whole wide variety of markets that we can go after. And this is an opportunity for us to build it from the ground up rather than waiting until we have, some communities will wait till they have 4 or 5 hotels and then they'll start it, and then they have a lot of struggles. And to top that off, what they don't do is they don't really look at their market. And what I'm proposing in that first year in 2019 is that we do a visitor profile study, which will allow us to look at who's already coming here and what markets can we be in. So some people might say, oh, we got bus tours. Well, in this community, we might not have bus tours. And I would argue that we probably have a lot of business travel here that comes to our neighboring communities, for that matter, New Century, Air Center, Edgerton, and we're losing that when we now have a Hampton. We're losing that to Olathe and to Overland Park, and that's an opportunity that we have to capture here in Gardner. I'd also, entertain that, New Century Fieldhouse, for instance, had between 20 and 25 sports tournaments a year. All right, those are all people, kids, who are going outside of our community to stay. Many of them are coming from all over the state, from both Missouri and Kansas. I've started having conversations with the director or the manager over there at New Century Fieldhouse. I actually have one coming up with Jason here in a couple weeks to talk about sports tourism and what are some of those opportunities that we can capture here in the community. We have typically been reactive, and we already work a little bit in the tourism realm, but we're reactive right now. We do things like list our attractions on the state of Kansas, travelkansas.com. We list it on their website. We do some initiatives through the Kansas City Regional Destination Alliance and some other small groups. But what this will allow us to do is be a little more proactive, understand who our market is, and go out and go after that. Prime example, we're going to have 3 wedding venues within the vicinity of Gardner in less than a year probably. That's huge. And I can tell you, having conversations with Milldale Farm over the last few years, their biggest complaint they get from people looking at having weddings there, and I'll let you know that a wedding at Milldale Farm for the weekend is around $12,000 to rent the facility for the weekend. And their biggest complaint they get from people who use it is there's no hotel close. So they're going to love this. I mean, this is going to be a huge advantage for us. And then now with the cidery at Casey Pumpkin Patch, the future of Warren Place, if it comes to fruition, we've got a lot of great opportunities. So, the first year, my recommendation is that, this money half the money gets set aside. We work towards a visitor profile study and a branding campaign with a little bit of marketing. We don't want to wait and not do anything, but we want to be very cautious about what we go out and market. And then in 2020, we'd have the opportunity, because we'd have this background, to be able to go out and fully implement a marketing campaign that would hopefully drive some of the traffic. And when I say drive traffic to the hotel, an example, when you talk about the financial side of things, a day visitor on average in the state of Kansas would probably be around $70 per visit. A hotel overnight visitor would be about $180 per visit. And without getting into too much geeky math, that's a significant economic impact if you're talking about 25 or 30,000 room nights, which would be the potential, probably more, frankly, at our hotel here in the community. So it's a huge opportunity. I think we're ripe to take advantage of it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts or your feedback or your questions just in general about what tourism looks like and some of that. We would, obviously I'm prepared to say that our current funding would be part of that, so we're not asking for half plus the $35,000 and change that we have right now. I think that would be encapsulated, especially next year. And as we grow, we probably we might relook at how that money gets spent and dedicated, and with some guidance there, and obviously from the committee. The last thing is more of a question, because this is something that's come up in conversation with a couple of you, as well as some community members. There has been conversation in the past about a leadership program, and there were, we have Gardner U, and some years ago the chamber ran a leadership program. I'm not here to say that we should or shouldn't do one, but I would love to hear your feedback if you think the time would be right for the community, for the chamber, whether it's the chamber or somewhere else in the community, to embark on the idea of a leadership program. Most of the chambers of commerce across the Johnson County run a chamber leadership program, and it's really geared towards the community, business leaders, civic leaders. It goes as an extension of Gardner U, where you're learning about the city government, but you're also learning about state government, industry, and so on. The chamber ran one a couple years ago, or for a couple years, 7 or 8 years ago, and then it just kind of stopped, and it made, some of the conversation with you has been, well, maybe we should bring that back, and I guess I'm looking for feedback from the rest of you before I suggest that we do that or don't do that. So that's what I have for you today. I know I'm supposed to keep this short, and I went through my notes pretty quickly, but I'll answer any questions you have.
Well, I think that what we'll probably do is go through all the presentations, and then if we have questions, we'll have those. We'll probably address some of those during.
We just can't do it while he's standing up here?
It's up to the folks on the dais. You want to address the questions now?
6,500. I'm fine either way.
If you'd like to ask a couple of questions.
Sure, I'll go.
Randy? Okay.
First, I want to say thanks to all the Chamber of Commerce ambassadors, board members, investors, business owners for coming out. I mean, you've got quite a resource behind you, Jason, and I think that's the reason why you're successful. Second, I would like to take the council's eye to the bottom of his handout, the last bullet, financial reserve policy. I think the city would want to invest in an organization with good fiscal stewardship. I think that's a wonderful play on the board. I think it's forward-looking, and I think it proves that we can learn from our mistakes. Third of all, I do support the leadership program. I think it dovetails well with Gardner U. I think that we can use some BKMs or best-known methods from other chambers. I think we have some great folks in-house and out-of-house that could help facilitate that and give folks in the surrounding area an opportunity to come down and discover Gardner, as well as those citizens that live here in town. So I would support that through the investment that you guys will determine tomorrow. But I support 100% of that request.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Gilly?
I would also like to thank you for your presentation, and I'll keep my comments short. I also support the leadership plan. I really like the idea of the tourism marketing and the bureau that you've spoken about. I don't remember the acronym.
CVB.
Yeah,
there you go. That's all right.
I really, I'm glad to see you getting out in front of that. I'm glad to see that we can leverage the Hampton Inn. It sounds like a really promising endeavor for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Todd Winters.
Oh.
Do you have any questions or comments?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Yeah, so as you were speaking, I was glad you mentioned the CVB, and I think definitely tying that in with the sports marketing, because we've mentioned that in the past as well, so I think that'll be a good segue to tie that together. And also, I'm in favor of the leadership program. I'm wondering if we can maybe combine or tie that together with the Gardner U program. I don't know that two separate programs are feasible, viable, but maybe if they're somehow combined, that would be a good option there.
Thank you, Todd. Yeah.
Okay. Councilman Mullen?
I liked the presentation. I think you're forward thinking with the Visitors Bureau. I support it. I think you're doing a great job.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark.
Question for funding levels with regard to the transient guest tax. What are our current conservative projections for? Do we have those at all?
We do.
There's only 2 hotels in town, so I can only give you ballpark because it's treated by the Kansas Revenue as if it's sales tax. Therefore, it's you cannot single anything out.
Sure.
So if you give me, I was going to give it to you in the morning, but it's
that's
roughly let's say $275 a year beginning in 2019.
Yeah, first quarter. Maybe second quarter of 2019 or first?
If they open on time, you should see
3 quarters.
Yeah, that's yearly, so you get it in quarters. So that was talking about annually. It's about
Sure.
$275.
And I understand there's a lag there. We're not going to
Yeah.
see 2018 revenues until probably the second quarter of 2019.
Right, you won't get anything
Correct.
till 2019.
So-
I don't know when.
But the reason why I bring that up is because, again, that's all dependent upon economics and dependent upon, things like occupancy and whether or not we get more hotels. And so right now, we're talking about a funding level in the 135 range, possibly, give or take 10 or 15,000.
Yeah, and I mean, I could go, and what I will tell you is I plan to go into a little more detail with the committee tomorrow morning about what some of that would look like. I tried to condense it today, you know, what some of that would look like moving forward, you know, from an advisory committee, what types of studies the first couple years. Just, you know, I'm not a big study fan, but I do believe in doing it the right way from the get-go, so we're marketing to the right people and not just kind of throwing money out to every publication and every opportunity that's out there. So my plan was to visit with them tomorrow morning, I guess, with Councilman Moore and Mayor Shute too, so.
Yep, so, yeah, just saying that because it's going to be incumbent upon the members of the Economic Development and the committee that's going to be working with transient guest tax, that we put in, you know, some controls and those kind of things.
Correct.
Too. Because we're talking about nearly quadrupling the amount of money
Yeah,
that we would
it's
be
a significant increase.
committing to the chamber.
Yep.
And so that's I just wanted to mention that to the group here. And
Well, I see that as an investment to grow out of the
certainly.
position that we're in now.
And I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
No, I'm not alluding to that.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we need to know, we need to, you know, acknowledge that is a significant commitment and investment in our chamber. And we're going to be looking for very close cooperation with the chamber.
Definitely.
And their endeavors in the future. And I know we're already sharing some marketing resources and some other things. We'll be doing a lot more of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Jason, when we've got you on the hook, you did all this with how many staff members? Be honest.
1.5.
Thank you.
I had half a staff last
So,
year.
I mean, that's a great investment,
I'm in the
guys.
process of hiring a new
I know.
new person this year, so we'll be back up to that.
Sure.
Plus some, so.
Great. Well,
Laura's got a comment.
yes, Laura.
I just want to add one more comment, is that roughly 275, and I'm ballparking here,
Sure, I understand.
but that was also based on their projections.
Correct.
So you want to keep that in mind. I have nothing to go on.
Right.
I understand that. I mean, your best guess back of napkin math is better than most people's, you know, calculations, Laura. So I would be happy to take that.
Laura, what's our existing expenses for the 4 entities that we're talking about right now? For 2018, what are we spending? I know 35 for the chamber and 27 for the museum, but I don't know for the
Now
cemetery
it
and
was,
EDC.
okay, it's 35 for the chamber, 27 for the cemetery, 10,000 for the museum, and EDC is, I don't know.
0 out of that fund, right? Oh.
Right, I just mean.
It's not out of Echo Dev, but I was talking about the
Right.
4
Yeah.
tonight. So the cemetery does not count. So 35 and, what was the other one again?
27
10
and
for the
10.
museum.
27, yeah.
27 comes out of the general fund. That's for the cemetery.
Okay.
Okay, and 10K for the museum?
Yes.
Okay.
So what's EDC?
Unless Greg knows.
Out of transient guest, it's 0.
Right.
What's the total?
35 from.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks a
Okay.
lot.
Thank you
Thanks a
very
lot,
much.
Jason, and appreciate your numbers, and we will have an answer for you pretty quick on this. Next person up would be Southwest Johnson County EDC. That is President and CEO Greg Martinet. Good evening, Greg.
Howdy, thank you. Jason said I could use the extra 5 minutes that he didn't use. So we set to go there? All right. Okay, I also have a few board members here that I want to introduce real quick. Ed York, who's our treasurer, Arvest Bank, is here, and Chris Stera from TSL Companies is here, and Randy Gregorczyk with the council, and Mayor Steve Shute, and several other of the chamber attendees here are members of ours as well. If you'll notice, this group of board members is a cross-section from across the Kansas City region, and they're all senior executives in their companies, and they are very involved in the development community, and they serve as ambassadors for the city of Gardner. So they're invested in what we do, they're committed, and I think it's an excellent group, and very proud to have them as part of our team. I'm going to go back and cover a little bit of what we accomplished in 2017, what we're going to work on in 18, and then a little bit for the future. And I'm not going to dwell on this very long. This is our annual report. You've received that electronically, and you have one in front of you. There we go. And you can see our total membership there, and again, some of the things that we accomplished this last year. Accomplishments from this last year. Again, you've seen all of these. There's a couple I want to focus on. The Hampton Inn, of course, CVS, Dairy Queen, Scooters, Billy Sims Barbecue, Planet Sub, Excelligence Learning Corporation, New Century Air Center brochure, our retail marketing brochure, and the virtual site marketing tool, Amazon HQ2, and Workforce Solutions Roundtable. The virtual site marketing tool is what I wanted to share with in the short amount of time. I'm just going to hit the highlights of it, but hopefully I can come back and spend some time and get in detail with how that works. This slide is a copy of the retail brochure that we are in the process. You have that at your spot. We're in the process of updating that right now in time for the International Council of Shopping Centers trade show in May. And then this is our virtual marketing tool. And this has been a partnership with the City of Gardner, Bartlett and West engineers, and the EDC. The most important thing for economic development organization, first and foremost, is to be able to promote and share available sites and buildings with detailed data and in a very professional manner, and make it accurate. So where do people go to get this? They go to our website, they go to City of Gardner's website, they may go to the Johnson County Airport Commission website, or to the Location One Information System, which is owned and run by Kansas City Power and Light, but it's a database of sites and buildings within the whole region. So my idea was that we needed to have the best that we could put together. And so we partnered with Bartlett and West with a new technology they had that instead of doing drone videos, which are very expensive and time consuming and limited on their usefulness, we used a new virtual tool that they have. So again, just to how it works, what we did was take working with Larry and his team, every available commercial site of other than small retail that was available in Gardner and New Century, identified that, and then Bartlett and West took their software tool and then mapped those out. So with all the terrain, the utility companies, the utilities on site, and then we put in a static image or more for each parcel so that somebody could see what a building would look like on that available property. So here you can see that. There is, on the left side here is all the data that we would have on a particular site, that just about everything that we get asked about potential sites. And then how would that look? How would a building look on that site? And where's the floodplain? Where's the rail? Where are the roads? How would we get in from the road, and where would the parking be? So this is actually what you're looking at, the Kansas Logistics Center. So you can see that we could have potentially a 200,000 square foot building, a 60,000 square foot building, or maybe one 300,000. Now the beauty of this is, if we get a prospect that says we need a 350,000 square foot building and we want it to be on that site, we can take this and within 24 hours take those two buildings off and put the 350,000 in there with the ingress, egress, and they would see immediately what it would look like. And then we would take it, and actually you see a virtual video of it. It's like a drone flying through there, so they could see how it looked and who the neighbors are and so forth. So the way this works is Bartlett and West set up the base model of all the sites, and then we can take it and do a print version, a video version, an interactive model version. It goes to county website, Airport Commission website, our website, and City of Gardner's. And they can get all the same information. There we go. So this is what it looks like, and this is the what we did with the Amazon headquarters HQ2 project that you're all aware of, and I think, I don't know, we have the YouTube video there. I don't, oh. So this was original. This is 175th and I-35, and originally, oh, here we go. So this is what we presented to Amazon that got us into one of the 17 sites that were submitted from Kansas City out of 52 that were submitted to KCADC. Now we can take this and use it for any corporate. So we didn't make it through with Amazon, but any other corporation that came to us wanting something like this, all we have to do is change the badges on the buildings and use it again. Or perhaps use it again with Amazon for a regional headquarters, a regional office. This was originally, when we put this together, was a mixture of retail, hotels, restaurants, and logistics, manufacturing operations. We were able to, within a week's notice, take that out. It's the beauty of this. Take that out and put this in and submit it on time. There's no other economic development corporation in the Kansas City region that currently has this technology or these tools. So immediately when we submit on a project, that puts us that much higher than everybody else, but also it shows, it shows very well for the city of Gardner and New Century. So this is what we would have for every site in New Century and Gardner, this same exact tool. Okay, we can, whoever's clicking for me, we can move on. Thank you. So then, usually the first response I have is to somebody said, well, we need 8 acres, send me a PDF, or send me a map. So we take this information and we put it on individual PDF or marketing sheets that I can send out electronically, download it off websites. But when they get this, then there's the red box within there says click here. They click on that and they go to that video, that virtual fly through. So it's just the coolest thing, and we're already using it, and we're real excited about that. And moving forward in 2018, 2019, we'll be enhancing this as well. We can put on the names of the companies that are already there and additional information. But just a really cool tool that we're now able to use. So moving on to our initiatives for 18 and moving forward, we're going to continue to upgrade that virtual marketing tool. We're going to increase our revenue over the next 2 years by $100,000. We're going to add administrative staff person to help with the Location One information system, with research, with data preparation, and other administrative things. We've hired a new accounting firm that is going to help with some of the back office duties that I take on now. Our Developers Expo event, which we've done for the 3 years I've been here, we're going to change that up a bit in the morning and do a bus tour through Gardner, New Century, and this area. Continue our business retention meetings. We've established 3 new committees, and the most important one of those is our Workforce Solutions Roundtable. We've had 2 meetings so far, which the mayor and councilmen have been involved in. We set up a new Facebook page starting last Thursday that we are now blasting out to about 40,000 people in the Kansas City metro, and it's all things job related. So people can post jobs, they can set up ride sharing, we can market the new bus system, anything and everything, and we've got about 75 likes so far on that. So we're looking forward to the momentum that's going to take on here moving forward. And we're going to have a new annual luncheon at the new hotel, and I've already told them we get to do the first event there, so it'll be rewarding investment in our community, and you'll hear more about that moving forward. So the new city, the City of Gardner scope of work, which I think you have in your packet. What we'll do with more funds coming in will be attendance at 2 additional retail conferences. We're going to build a specific hotel recruitment marketing piece. We're going to identify a buyer and developer for the day 3 property, which we've already begun. And we're going to market those site opportunities to hotel developers, potentially attending their conferences and one-on-one. So this is what our Workforce Solutions Facebook page looks like. Very professional. We administer it, but again, it's open for anybody to post on. And with that, I'll stop and answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I will open it up to the council.
I'll go first again. So I appreciate Greg coming up, and I think you're doing a phenomenal job over the last couple of years. I sat in on the Workforce Solutions panel, and we now have a Gardner OP Express 595 that tracks through New Century. We can get you a copy of this, I'm sure. But from a guy that works locally and lives here, obviously, I think this is a huge thing, and my company and through the budget process, we've actually invested in a van to try to tie into these bus stops to get folks from the bus stop in New Century over to Coleman. So it's a great thing, and the county did great work, and Greg did great work as well. The thing that I'd want to point out, and Greg or Laura could correct me, but for the Walmart TIF, which expired early as compared to the projection of the life of the TIF, I think it was around the 8-year mark, produced about $800,000 annually. And we'll do that for Infinity. And that was based on an approximate investment of $200,000. So we quadrupled our investment over that period of time. And I think we need to look at the investment in Southwest Johnson County EDC as just that, an investment. We're in a marathon. There are some small sprints along the way, but I see the investment as an opportunity to grow out, be proactive, bring in the ideal commerce and industrial, for which is I'm more interested in manufacturing than just warehousing. And then that secondary ripple, which would be your Applebee's and some of your service-oriented locations would come in. So I implore everybody to support the Southwest Johnson County with their request.
Thank you.
Yes.
Greg, you mentioned an increased revenue of 100,000. Was that all assumed from?
It's a mixture of between our members, our private investors, and the City of Gardner.
Okay.
The airport it's an interesting situation. Max is out. They can't do any more cash, but they're helping us with some of our larger, like our investment in the Kansas City Area Development Council and KC Smartport, which gives us a little extra cash to work with.
First of all, Greg, thank you so much for the presentation. I was really impressed. I feel like the EDC's come a long way in the last 2 to 3 years. And
thank you.
I know I've been one to give you a really hard time from up here in that position at the podium. And I just want to say that you've really, I think you've knocked it out of the park in the last year, especially.
Thank you.
And really appreciate the effort. And really appreciate being able to see tangible results from the investments that we've made thus far. So thank you.
Well, and the momentum's just beginning. We have some really exciting things that are happening, and not next week or the next month, but this week, and that we're really looking forward to. So I appreciate that very much.
Todd Winters.
Yes. I want to say thank you for everything you've done, and I do think the EDC is definitely invaluable for Gardner. I think it's Gardner and the surrounding area. But it provides us just a constant marketing source promoting Gardner and the surrounding area. So I think it's definitely a good investment. I did have a question, maybe we'll get to this at some point, but as far as the funding source, we've mentioned the guest tax fund, and I'm not sure, maybe we should be funding some of that out of that fund, or more of it out of that fund. So just something to consider on that.
Just a clarification on the funding request itself, Greg. We're talking about $55,000, is that correct?
55 from general and 15 from transient, but it doesn't matter how it gets split up to me.
Sure. But that would be a doubling of our commitment to the EDC. And personally, I don't have a vote in this, but personally I think it's well worth it. I don't know I think the total amount of investment that we've brought into the community in this last year through the EDC was something on the order of $50 million. That's pretty good return on a $35,000 investment. I don't know about anybody else, but I think that ROI is pretty positive, right, Randy?
Yes, sir.
So the $55,000 plus the 15 from transient guest tax, I think that's definitely something we will consider, and we will get back to you on that very, very quickly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks
Appreciate
for your
your
time.
presentation. Thank you. All right, next presentation is from the Gardner Township Cemetery. Representatives from the Township Cemetery Board. How's it going tonight, ladies?
Good. How are you?
Great.
Thank you so much for hearing us plead for our budget. I think a couple of you are new, so I will give you a little background. First of all, I am Donna Pierce. I'm the treasurer of the Gardner Township Board. This is Mary Friend, who is the clerk, and we have one other who is our trustee, and his Dave Wolf, and he cannot be here because he's a firefighter. We have no board members in the audience because we are it. So this is all you get, folks.
One couple.
One couple, yes. The Gardner Township, first of all, the ones that have not been in before, have you been to the cemetery before?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yes, ma'am.
Good, all right. The Gardner Township Cemetery is located at 400 South Poplar. It was created in the 1880s and holds some of Gardner's most outstanding forefathers. Until 2011, when there was a downturn in the economy, the city shared almost 50% of the cost for caring for the cemetery. In 2011, Gardner's share went from almost half of the budget to $7,500, which was around 7% of the budget. Even though Gardner's valuation is $150 million and our township evaluation is $50 million, Gardner's population is 20,000 plus, and our township population is 2,000 plus some people, and dwindling. It is shrinking because Gardner is annexing and taking in, and I hear rumors that probably Edgerton is likely to take some of us also into theirs. I hope not. All of these years, we've charged Gardner citizens the same price for a cemetery lot as the township pays. In 2017, we raised the price for the Gardner citizens to $1,000 per lot, and the Gardner Township citizens to $500 per lot. Last year, during the budget season, we approached the City Council, and they agreed that they needed to help us with more of the cost. They then voted to give us in 2018 $27,000, roughly one half of our budget. Thank you very much. It came last week, and it's in the bank. We have since lowered the cost of a lot for the Gardner folks to $500, the same as for the Weed Township people. Our budget for 2019 is $60,460, and for 2020, it is projected to be $65,460,000. We are asking the city to again help us with one half of the budget so that we may keep the citizens of Gardner's lots the same price as the township. I understand if you cannot do this for the next 2 years, keep it half and half, and if it is less, we will then adjust the prices for the Gardner Township people, a percentage of what you share in our budget. We have talked to Michael Kramer and Larry Powell about some things, work in kind, that might help us. And I don't know if this is going to be news to them, but we have a gate. We've been told by the Cemetery Association and by the caretaker that there is a problem with traffic coming off of Grand through the cemetery and going to the school mainly, and it's become quite a problem. We do have a gate, but we do need someone to dig a hole and mount the gate on that for us. And so if that's something that might be helpful to us, if you all could do that. If you have any questions, Mary and I'll be glad to answer.
I think it'd be a good Eagle Scout project.
I think it would be. Well, thank you very much, Donna. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mary. Anyone from the guy over here that would like to ask some questions of the township folks?
I'm fine.
No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
ladies.
great. Thank you. So that's the $30,000, correct? We have approximately half, maybe a little bit more, and then if we throw in the post hole diggers and take care of that for the.
That was my question about the draft.
Yeah, and then there was another question about the Grand Street crossing into the cemetery.
And so.
Was that addressed?
So that's a city street,
Yes, it is.
basically up to the cemetery, but it does cross the BNSF Railroad spur there. And that's one of the things that they approached us early on and they would like to have done. It was not part of our 2017 street maintenance project. We paved the existing hard surfaced area, you know, and that's definitely something we talked with the cemetery folks about, that they would like to see the gravel portion of that paved. You know, excluding any railroad crossing permits, et cetera, we think that's in the, I believe, $15,000 to $20,000 range to get that, you know, overlaid, if you will, and you know, and it's something that I guess I would need direction, and we can, you know, if you all think that's worthwhile, then, you know, we can make it part of one of our street maintenance projects.
So I'm all for it. I mean, I'm going to be buried in Texas, but not anytime soon. With that being said, and I appreciate your patience with me, would we take that amount out of the road of the contribution, or would that road be in addition to the contribution?
It's a policy decision.
I'm just asking.
I would, yes.
I was going to say, I believe the township cemetery would like it in addition to.
Yes. Yes.
What it is we have no authority to do anything with that road.
Okay.
We are the township, and your boundaries and Grand Street is in the city of Gardner. And back in the day, that road was used since 1800s.
Sure.
And at some point in time, they ceased to maintain it. I believe it's when they developed the property to the south, which was the Hope Craver Farm.
Yep.
And at that time at some point in time, they cut that road there and went on into that subdivision and ceased to maintain Grand Street. So we're just hoping that that is a city street and that you could improve it.
Okay.
We'd appreciate it.
Yep. I think the disconnect here is that we're experiencing a little bit here at the dais is that we're going to be maintaining that street into and over the tracks, and then paving the gravel portion, which is inside the cemetery itself. But at the same time, we're putting up a gate.
It's outside the cemetery.
Yeah, it's on the.
It's outside.
It's the city
yeah.
street that they're.
That's why I was asking
Okay,
the
so
question.
that is still
Take care
gravel
of.
all the way up to the.
Yeah, so Grand Street, and I apologize, I forget the actual length, but just after the last turn to the south, Grand Street's not paved anymore. So we paved to the last house, basically on the north side of Grand Street.
Yep.
And from then on, it's gravel. So it's gravel up to the railroad tracks and
So it's that
across
small
it.
stretch right there that the
Yes.
$20,000 we're talking about. But we'll pave up to the gate, and then the gate is.
Right, and so we would pave up to the edge of their property, essentially.
So, Mike, have bids gone out for the spring and the summer road program that we're gonna?
No, we're working on those.
Can we slide that in there? I
And
mean,
so
they've got
we can
excess asphalt.
So there's multiple ways we can do
Okay.
it. We can bid it as part of our next project. We can tack it onto an existing project that they have to come back and do some additional things still on. Center Street project. There's a lot of places we can get it done, all of which are about the same cost. It's just, you know, do we want to get it done?
Well, I support it. I was just trying to
yeah.
understand the relationship. I understand the logistics of it, but yeah, I'd want to get it in on that bid. And again, I know they buy bulk asphalt and so forth, so that strip that we own that runs up to the cemetery, gosh, that couldn't be much of a deal breaker.
No. I mean, a couple hundred yards, maybe? That?
Yeah, I don't remember the tonnage or anything, but
Yeah,
just
it's-
the dollar amount we'd estimate.
Sure.
What is the dollar amount again?
About 25,000?
25?
I believe 15 to 20.
Okay, so 15 to 20. That's minimal.
I think I'd be in favor of that as well. It's used by people for more than just the cemetery. I mean, people go through there to walk and drive around and enjoy the day. So I think it's money well spent.
Well, it's a city street, so it just depends on when you want to improve it.
Yeah,
That's the
it's
only
not a
question.
matter
So,
of whether,
and
it's a matter
and
of
if we
when.
can do it easily this year, then let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I'd be in favor of that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, in addition to the funding of the
Yep.
half the budget.
And then, and I guess the other thing is the in-kind services. You know, we've been doing a little bit, and you know, in materials and using our street crews primarily to do a few odds and end things, move some dirt, that type of thing. Would it be your direction also to, you know, continue with some of those things as we have time available?
I mean, has it been an inconvenience to your staff to do any of those things?
You know, we've tried to work with the cemetery on scheduling it and doing it in, you know, downtimes when we don't have, and that's probably a bad thing to say because we
No, that's
really
the
don't
right
have
thing. Yeah.
downtimes, but,
Get
you know,
our guys
trying
their
to
hours.
schedule it
Mhm.
such that it doesn't. And I'd say we have maybe 60 hours or something so far that we've done out there.
You probably have some training that you could probably do in conjunction with some of that, like on posthole diggers.
I'm okay with you continuing the in-kind, but I would like to keep track of it.
Yes.
From a dollar standpoint of what we're
I think that'd be a good.
outlaying there.
Yep. Okay, anything else? All right, let's go to the final presentation, the Gardner Historical Museum. And we have representatives from the Historical Museum in here as well. Good evening.
Good evening. We've not done this before, so bear with us. But you have supported us since 2002, and we did start our museum with funds from the transient tax. I'm Shirley Brown, Van Arsdale, and have been a member of the founding committee of the Gardner Historical Society since we started it with a wonderful group of Gardner residents that thought it was important to have a museum to share our history with our community and others. And Laura and I are both co-presidents this year. And we provided you with a letter that we have provided you every year since we've asked for funds, so that you have it in your packet so I don't have to read it to you. We might highlight a few things. And also with that, we provided a list of our accomplishments for last year. And then tonight I added something that went around, and that's an article on the Olathe Mahaffey House and how they partnered with their small little museum, and it has grown into a huge attraction. And if you will notice, some of the council members have made comments that it was the best thing they ever did, and they need to make it better and better, and that's from Senator Brownlee. So I want you to be aware that we're here. We need your help to survive. And we want to thank the mayors and the city council and all the staff that's helped us since 2002. You've assisted with the funding from the transient tax, And that's what that tax was for, was to help you bring tourism to Gardner. So we hope that you will continue to support us. And we're only supported by memberships. We have no revenue stream except from the city and any grants that we might ask for. And again, it's totally volunteer. So no one is making any money from the museum. We're all just donating our time, and we certainly appreciate all the support and time you've given us. We strive yearly to provide programs and exhibits to tell our story of Gardner's historic beginnings. We are the only city in the United States where all three trails divide from the great, huge U.S. Western expansion in the 1800s. I think we need to take advantage of that. I know Cheryl and her staff and all of the community know that we're growing, and I think we can take advantage and grow our museum, but we can't without your help. So from the letter that you have, we have a huge exhibit right now for all of you or anybody in the audience on Leonard Sebring's artwork, and it has brought in many, many guests so far. So please come up and tour the museum. But what we would like to say is, I think it's kind of ironic, when we started our museum, the city gave us $10,000, and they helped us, and then the economy went down. If you remember the downturn of 2008, and we went back to $4,000 or $5,000. And so for the last several years, we received $6,000. So you'll note that we asked for more last year, and you did fulfill that wish, and we're just asking for the same amount of the $10,000 for next year's budget. We hope that we can continue to grow and evolve along with the Gardner community. The museum is listed in the State and National Register of Historic Places and is affiliated with several museum associations, including the wonderful Freedom's Frontier National Historic Area. So we're just going to mention a few things about our special tours and presentations and the variety of groups that step forward to help us. And Laura's going to mention some of the projects she's doing, and also just what we would be using some of your funds. We were fortunate and had a resident of Johnson County, Mary Cohen, step forward and pay $70,000 off of our mortgage. We raised enough money ourselves. Our mortgage originally was $130,000 when we started the museum. And we did stake your claim. We sold parts of the museum. And Mary knew we were never going to sell every part of the museum and stepped forward and helped us with that venture, and the museum is mortgage free. But then we got adventurous and brave and took a risk and bought another property, and that's the Bray House. And I'll let Laura mention what the Bray House is, but we still owe $40,000 on that. So yearly we meet our expenses. We have to have fundraisers to pay our mortgage on that other part of the Bray House. So we're functioning very small budget, so thank you so very much for helping us in the way you have. And I'm going to turn it over to Laura. If you have any questions, this is our first adventure. We've always asked yearly, and you've helped us, but we're glad you asked us to come tonight. So,
thank you, Shirley.
Hello. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I'm working on right now, just finishing up, is presentations to the school children. I go to second and third graders in the USD 231. I have one more school to do presentation to, and we will have done all of the schools in the district this year. This is the first year that we have been able to do all of them. Plus we have one homeschool group that is coming in for some work on research and how to write an article that they are planning. And also we had the Gardner third graders walk down for a special field trip tour of the museum. So we work very closely with the school district and those children. So I'm very proud of that commitment that we have. We also added this year, one of our board members is an archaeologist. So we did add the archaeologist end of that to the presentation, and whether they liked him or not, or whether they more or less liked his drone that he brings to the presentations, but they did enjoy all of that, and we're very pleased to be able to making that commitment to them. We also would be happy to have any of you come if you were wanting to do a tour, a special tour. All you have to do is call. I would be happy to schedule that for you as well, or I do a lot of presentations to other groups, to Rotary, the Lions, those types of things too. So if you ever want to know more about the museum and what we're doing and how we're doing it, I'd be happy to provide that for you. You're probably wondering what we might spend some of the additional funds for, like Shirley had mentioned. And quickly, it just came up with a few items, and maybe we can do some in-kind work with that as well. We wanted to try and establish maybe some funding that would we could actually hire someone to improve the yard, plant flowers, leveling. We have a group that we have a $250 budget each year that they can buy some flowers and some fertilizer and do a little bit of work, but it's not nearly the whole yard. It's just some spots that they like to work on, beautification. We'd like to be able to pay someone to actually do regular mowing on a schedule that we choose. Right now, we are relying on funding from another source, and so basically it is a donation to us, and you can't really force someone to, when you're getting it for free, they do it at their convenience, which is not necessarily the best time for the museum for the curb appeal. We also have a driveway that is asphalt, but it's been there since, what, 2003?
And it was donated.
It was donated, but we've had some issues over the years with the weather has taken a toll, so that needs to be repaired. We would like to improve the parking at the Bray House. Right now, all it is a little gravel driveway in there. Visitors to that property, if they don't park at the museum and walk over, would be parking mainly on the street. The Bray House was built in 1952, and since that time the furnace has been replaced once that we are aware of, but it is starting to have its problems as well. So we are in the process of getting estimates on having a new furnace put in with better ductwork to make it more efficient for the house. We've also never redone the inside of the house since 2003. Wallpaper, painting, that sort of thing is starting to wear, so we may end up having to do some of those things. We'd also like to increase our advertising budget and come up with ways to improve community awareness. It's amazing the number of people in the community when we talk about the museum and they don't know that Gardner has a museum. And we feel that's unfortunate. As long as we have been here, so we would like to make more awareness of our existence and what we can do for the community. Again, thank you for the assistance that you do provide.
Questions?
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Shirley. Any questions from the dais?
Not on that specifically.
I do on that specific note. So I'm going to use what you just said about advertising budget as a good segue. As I enter town, whether it be off of I-35, the north exit, 175th, or Gardner Road.
There's no sign.
Thank you, Shirley. There's no signs.
We have asked.
Okay, so if I go to other communities, I see some sort of signage,
You're right.
all qualities and quantities. I would suggest that perhaps we work with Jason in the Parks and Rec Department and look at maybe a couple of signage locations at those intersections. I don't know what that really means,
They'll work on it.
Shirley, literally, but just some sort of round sign or whatever the sign might be. But as we have this hotel coming, and we have out-of-towners coming, whether they're grandparents or kids that are seeing grandparents or business travelers or folks that are going to be going to our golf course, it would be great to be able to advertise that we do have a museum in our downtown corridor that has been well received for a number of years. So that's the thing for me in supporting this financial piece is some sort of in-kind between us or them and the Parks and Rec Department and see what we can do, you know, in a conservative manner to get you guys some signage.
And the signs that are in town at this time were provided by the city.
Correct.
The little brown ones.
Yep.
They did a great job. Thank you for those. But we always hoped for a little bigger and a little better.
Yeah, I agree with you, Shirley. So that's kind of where I'm going, is take that next step, because it is an entity and a key piece to the story of Gardner.
Correct.
Thank you. Anybody else?
All right.
Thanks, ladies.
Todd, you got something?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. I did have one thing really quickly on the Historical Museum. Hearing what the museum has in terms of needs from the standpoint of, I know that the request is for $10,000, but it sounds like they've got some structural needs within the building that need to be taken care of. There's also some issues with outside improvements that can be done in kind, but I think some of the, like for example, there's a furnace that's going right now in the building, and some other you know, physical plant type of things. I mean, I'm wondering if, again, this is coming out of transient guest tax money, and we've got $10,000 coming out of there right now. Does it make sense to provide a little more so that they can replace those things? The furnace, the you know, painting, wallpapering. I think that that's kind of what they're talking about, and it's only going to get more expensive to repair as we go later on in things. So I'm just throwing it out there, asking you for your feedback.
I think it's a good idea with the caveat that we spend the money with a local vendor. So we have HVAC folks here in town. We have handymen out there that can paint and so forth. I'd also suggest that maybe we lean on Lions Club or Knights of Columbus or Boy Scouts for the yard work and so forth. That could double over as a project or a community service. That's the only caveat that I'd have with that investment.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, but that kind of leads to my one question.
Sure.
Laura, what else can we do with the transient guest tax?
I would have to look up the charter ordinance, which I can do, and, oh, okay, Ryan's looking it up. We do have a charter ordinance, and it's largely geared towards tourism and promotion and marketing, and that's
Not necessarily a physical plant, so we would
not, no, but you would have to call it a grant.
Sure. Okay, and that's
Okay.
fine. Again, I'm just, okay. But it sounds like 10,000, which is for promoting the historical museum, which makes sense.
Well, so
is
plus the signage.
The first thing that I noted when in our packet with these four is how Southwest Johnson County EDC was being funded out of the general fund. And now that the transit tax is going to be coming up,
yes.
I see no reason that if we have this economic development entity that we're funding it out of the general fund. So my first suggestion is that we move the EDC 100% of its funding into the transient tax and none of it out of the general fund.
The only concern well, the only concern I've got about that is that we are now basically devoting almost 3/4 of the transient guest tax fund to two organizations.
Well, it depends on the number.
That's
just because we have more money, we think, next year doesn't mean we have to go, you know, doubling every value that we have just because.
I get it. And also, I don't know if would Economic Development Corporation be considered promotion?
EDC has been paid from the transit guest tax before for many, many years.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then
Just not recently.
I'd entertain it.
Well, let me ask a question on that. Ryan, and I know you're looking at something now, but you can multitask. How are we bound by transient guest tax? To Mark's point, I mean, I want to support all these entities through this funding mechanism, but what is the rules and regulations that dictate that we not have a surplus of transient guest tax and or not used for said purpose?
Laura's
Right here.
Laura's got it. I mean, so there are state statutes which restrict what you can spend, what municipalities typically can spend transient guest tax on. They're usually, you know, kind of like CVB type of things, convention visitors. It's been a long time since I've looked at. Laura's got it up right here. We have chartered out of those state statutes and have kind of identified our own uses.
So we have a code that we're playing on. Okay.
It's Charter Ordinance 18, and there's a couple of different spots where it addresses what I hand this out every year, it's highlighted. There's a couple of different spots where it gives definitions, but our substitute specifically says that one of the things we can do is economic development promotion, and that's defined as activities to attract the location or relocation of business into the community through marketing efforts, including advertising. Number 2 is activities designed to encourage retention and expansion of existing businesses in the community. And number 3, convention and tourism promotion activities designed to attract visitors into the community through marketing efforts, including advertising, directed to at least one of the 5 basic convention and tourism market segments consisting of group tours, pleasure travelers, association meetings and conventions, trade shows, and corporate meetings and travel in support of those activities and organizations which encourage increased lodging facility occupancy. Then there's another spot where it's specific, so that was just that one definition. And then there's a spot that says all such monies received by the city treasurer from disbursements for transient guest tax shall be credited to this fund, blah, blah, blah. And then it says expended for economic development promotion, including convention and tourism promotion pursuant to the terms of an agreement or agreements approved by the governing body for economic development promotion services. That's pretty much it. As far as that's all the guidance you're given.
And there's no statutory requirement that we use every single dollar of those. It's a
No.
reserve fund.
No, it's the same thing I do with every fund, is all funds have to come out to zero, so you budget the reserve. So it's fine. You don't have to spend every penny.
Okay. And what are our current reserves right now? Transient guest tax?
Well, perhaps the opposite way would be that council would determine what that savings account is.
Yep.
Let's say it's 30% of X, and then that gives you 70% to disperse, or 80%.
That's kind of what I was wondering about the reserves currently, because we have an expected dollar amount that we're talking about here, which is approximately 265.
I think before, I'm completely on board with funding all of these things as we've talked about, including the Gardner Historical Museum at the 10,000 mark. Before we approve additional funds, I would like to see what we're working with.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for.
But I'm all on board with increasing it if the budget allows.
Yes. Okay.
Let me try to catch everything you said. All right, this, as again, tomorrow morning, and I'm handing all this out, but so everybody here knows, you ended 2017 with 91,007, let's round up, 91,700 as your actuals. And the 2018 budget, assuming that's when you passed, the 2018 budget started with a different figure, which was about 20,000 less, and came out to say if we did everything we said we were going to do in 2018 now, we'd end up with just short of 21,000. So really, as I've said a couple of times, you don't get any real money until 19.
Right.
So using my ballpark and assuming that you do everything you said you were going to do in 2018 and knowing that you had an extra 20,000-ish, I would let you go to 85-ish yearly. That makes me nervous, but let's stay with 275, 285, and that's what you're working with, and that keeps your fund balance It grows, but I'm conservative. So you get up in the end of 19, you could be at 351, 321, 400. It grows pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But that's assuming everything is as we said. And that you don't, but you just went, which I have not put in here yet. I just heard directives to do a CV, whatever that acronym was, right? And so you're spending it already. So we'll catch up in the morning, but
So what's the fund balance then? What's the reserves?
well, right now,
20,000.
it's, let's call it 40, because you ended a little higher than we started with. So let's call it 40 right now.
Okay.
So if we spent 70 to the EDC and 135 to the chamber, and let's say you did 20 for the cemetery, that's 225,000. Or sorry, the museum. That's 225,000. So if we bring in 275, you're bringing in 50 plus the 20 to 40 you already have. So you're basically where you were at the end of last year. So that meets everybody. We've got a little savings, and you moved. Well, we had 35 coming out this year from EDC that would go over to that fund. So effectively, we're saving $32,000 in the general fund. So that's good news.
Okay, so if this is, before you guys go any further, if this becomes a directive, or, you can't really give a directive, it's a suggestion.
No, suggestion.
But I didn't write it down for tomorrow morning's meeting, so I would have to take my thumb off this button and have Councilman Baldwin speak again if you were all in somewhat of agreement.
I can tell you what my suggestion was again.
I'm in agreement with that.
Say it again for the record.
70,000 to Southwest Johnson County EDC. All of it from the transit guest tax. The 135 for the CVB. The
20,000 for the historical museum.
20,000 for the museum, yes. And then 30,000 out of the general fund for the cemetery.
Laura,
Yes, sir.
do we, the funds we set aside for existing businesses to expand, does that come out of that as well?
We do have $25,000 budgeted in 2018 for that, and I had a note to ask in the morning if anybody had any desire to do anything else with that.
I think we do. Larry? At least I hope we do.
We are expecting to expend that 25,000 this year, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And then that, I don't have an application yet, but we're expecting to.
I think one's forthcoming.
So that's I'm not prepared to sit here and grind sausage right now, but again, those are
good recommendation.
2019 numbers, and those are also suggestions for tomorrow morning's meeting, and I'll regurgitate them for you tomorrow.
Merely a suggestion, and then since that's 225 out of the 275, that gives us a little wiggle room if the numbers don't come in as well. And if it does, we've got more in the reserves for next year.
So
It meets everybody's needs.
What would 40,000, which is in the reserve or the fund balance, what is that as a percentage of the total? That'd be, yeah, would that be like 20%? Okay. Yeah, okay. So 20% would be a good number to just benchmark off of? For the,
I think that would be a sufficient
just a
amount.
start.
Well, we should probably mirror the general fund, which is, well, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay, so in a special revenue fund that doesn't have any taxing or anything, and the rating agency could not care less what you're doing with this, you can spend every dollar, and, I mean, there's no reason to keep any particular amount of fund balance in that fund.
But if you had that as a benchmark, you could carry that over and spend it all, the next year if something pops.
Well, yeah, with increased activity, we may have other needs in the future for it.
I would agree.
It wouldn't hurt to have a little extra. Plus, we don't know if something's going to happen. Tornado hits Hampton, and whoop, there goes all the money.
They'll rebuild quick.
Yes, Laura.
There were some other things that have been discussed and taken in and out of this fund in the past, like your downtown lighting, Munster Main Street corridor thing. You would like it to be pretty, and we were going to hold that off till 2019, 2020. We took that out last year when the fund didn't quite have enough in it. So there's some other things that aren't being talked about tonight because there's no one to talk about them. But you know, there isn't any reason to keep any specific fund balance, and the rest is tomorrow morning, unless, I do want to go back to, you, Councilman Baldwin brought up again the cemetery. I think I already heard consensus to give them half of their budget. Is that what I heard?
30,000.
That, because that is the general fund, and I can take that directive now.
30,000.
What, 30,000 exactly? Because next year's was a little, I mean, they had some different numbers for
It was
2020.
60, 460, I think, for this year. Is that right?
Yes.
So half of this year and half next year.
Okay, whatever it was.
32, 750.
All right.
Whatever.
Okay.
All right, yeah, 50%.
All right, anything else from the body? Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for your presentations, ladies and gentlemen, from the different organizations. We will,
Please, excuse me, Mayor,
Yes,
point of
sorry.
order, and I had this written down, but the city administrator reminded me, on the grave cost, did that cost, ladies,
yes, from the same. Yes.
did the grave cost change in January? If you'd step up to the podium, that'd be great. So we're funding as requested.
Thank you.
And we made it clear I'm going to be buried in Texas, so I have no dog in the fight. But from a, excuse me? On a grave cost, are those costs retroactive January to March of 2018? Or how does the citizen, based on the community's investment, are they going to be able to realize that, or?
Well, the way they realize it is when they go out to buy a lot.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And the caretaker takes them around
Yes,
to
ma'am.
show them different ones. He will tell them your price, if you're a citizen of Gardner.
Yes, ma'am.
Or a township person, your cost is going to be $500.
So-
That's how the people will know.
And I appreciate that. Let me better phrase my question.
Okay.
Has anybody come out to look at plots in 2018 as of January and bought it for $1,000 versus the 500?
That I don't know. Yes, they have, Shirley said.
Okay, so would this investment provide a retroactive, and then would that go back to 2017? And I'm sorry, I'm getting in the weeds, but
No, it's, you know, I can't decide on my own, but I would say, last week we had a meeting, the Gardner Township Board, and that is when we voted to drop it down to $500. And we did not do that till, quite frankly, because I was gone for the winter.
yeah, you're a snowbird.
Yeah.
Were you in Texas?
I was.
So he
And
does
that's
have a
when
dog
we
in the
dropped
fight.
And that's when we dropped the price.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we might want to consider some sort of retroactive based on the investment on behalf of the citizens
I
that.
mean, it'd be like give the people back their money that paid $1,000.
Well, if we're investing,
What we did last year, we didn't make that active until May of last year. I'd have to look to make sure of the records.
okay,
We did not make that change in the dollar till May.
Uh-huh.
But the minute we received our $27,000 from the city this year, we then voted the 28th of March to say, from there forward, it is now $500 for the citizens of Gardner.
okay. Well, I mean, I represent
And we did have
the-
an individual that seemed to be
needy,
and we okayed that individual to get their gravesite at $500.
Yes, ma'am. Well, as a member that supports and represents the community, I think it behooves me to bring that up, and that's the reason why I was bringing it up. So I don't know, I heard somebody, maybe it was Shirley, but I think you guys should consider some sort of retro if indeed somebody bought a plot in that period of time. Yeah. So May of 2017 through March of 2018 would maybe be a good window.
but we didn't actually get our money from y'all until last week.
Yeah. I mean,
We paid-
let me
Go
back
ahead.
in here. Yeah, because before 2018,
Mhm.
before this year, we weren't paying 50%.
No.
Okay? We paid 50% out of starting last year's budget cycle, which would be for this year. So going back to 2017 is not
Okay.
giving an option.
So January of 2018 to March would be
would be
something to consider.
a possibility, but we'd have to discuss that. And to be honest, I don't think this is necessarily the forum to do that.
Well,
Fair
right, I
enough.
mean, that's up to that board.
I understand. I'm just
Yeah.
bringing it up.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Okay.
It's not at my direction, it's just my recommendation.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you,
you for your
ladies.
input.
Thank you,
Thank you
ladies.
very much. Okay, next item, presentation item number 2. And this presentation is about Citizen Advisory Committee vacancies and the updates on filling these positions. Amy Waller, City Clerk, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I know we've already had several presentations this evening and have a relatively full agenda ahead, so I'll do my best to keep this brief. During the March 5th, 2018 regular City Council meeting, Resolution 1984, the Master Resolution for Citizen Advisory Committees, was passed. While the resolution left much of the structure and day-to-day operation of these committees unchanged, there were some important changes that have resulted in questions which need to be answered by the Council in order to move forward with filling the committee vacancies. Following the passage of Resolution 1984 and the subsequent reduction of committee members from 6 to 5 for each committees, 10 vacancies remain on the committees. 5 of these vacancies are for seats that are actually empty, while 5 are for sitting Citizens Advisory Committee members with expired terms. The first of these questions is which term expiration should be removed from each committee. As mentioned previously, Section 2B of Resolution 1984 reduced the number of citizen members from each committee from 6 to 5. This reduction means that one of the terms for each of the current committees must be eliminated. Please note that the reference sheet which you have been provided includes all 6 of the original terms. Each Citizens Advisory Committee currently has one more term than vacancy or vacancies. For easier reference, here is a list of the expired or vacant terms for each of the Citizens Advisory Committees. The ADA Committee currently has 3 expired terms or vacancies with 4 available terms, 2 in December 2019 and 2 in December 2020. The Citizens Police Advisory Committee currently has 1 expired term or vacancy with 2 available terms, both in November of 2020. The Economic Development Advisory Committee currently has 2 expired terms or vacancies with 3 available terms, 1 in November 2018 and 2 in November 2020. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee currently has 1 expired term or vacancy with 2 available terms, 1 in December 2019 and 1 in December 2020. And the Streets, Sidewalks, and Stormwater Advisory Committee currently has 3 expired terms or vacancies with 4 available terms, 2 in August of 2018 and 2 in August of 2020. As you can see, there is a wide variety of terms available for removal. Staff suggests the removal of a term with an expiration date of 2020 from each Citizens Advisory Committee for the purpose of consistency, as each committee has at least 1 vacancy or expired term with a 2020 end date. This is not true of the 2018 or 2019 end dates. So we've done this as kind of a decision point PowerPoint, but I will go ahead and go through the whole thing so you can take comments and then we can go back to these decision points. As you may recall, Section 3A of Resolution 1984 outlined the process for making appointments to fill vacancies. As a brief recap, each chair at the dais in the council chambers at Gardner City Hall, with the exception of the mayor's seat, was assigned a number 1 through 5. Starting with the seat farthest to the mayor's right, which is currently occupied by Mr. Baldwin, is number 1, and ending with the seat farthest to the mayor's left, currently occupied by Mr. Grigorczyk, is number 5. For each vacancy on any Citizens Advisory Committee, the council member in the seat with the next ascendant numerical value following the numerical value of the seat of the council member that made the previous submission to fill a vacancy is allowed to make a submission. What Resolution 1984 did not outline is which council member makes the very first submission utilizing this process. Please note that as there are currently 10 vacancies or expired terms, each council member will be able to make 2 total submissions for filling these vacancies. The starting seat that you select will determine which council member will fill the next available vacancy after these 10 vacancies or expirations are filled. Seat 1 would be the logical starting point for the initiation of this new process. However, the council may select any seat they so desire, each having its own advantages. Seat 2 is the current seat of the longest serving council member. Seat 3 is the current seat of the council president. Seat 4 is the current seat of the council vice president. And Council President Moore made the final selection in the Citizens Advisory Committee members utilizing the previous process. And seat 5 is currently Councilmember Gregorcik's seat. This would be followed by seat 1, which is currently Councilmember Baldwin's seat, and would allow the 2 newest council members the first chance to select Citizens Advisory Committee members following this selection of 10.
You forgot random.
That's why there's one that says, as the council wishes. And finally, what order will the vacancies be filled in? As the need to fill a total of 10 vacancies on the Citizens Advisory Committees is a unique circumstance, there is no methodology outlined in Resolution 1984 for determining the order in which these vacancies are to be filled. As a reminder, the vacancies are as follows: ADA 3, Citizens Police Advisory Committee 1, EDAC 2, Parks and Recreation 1, Streets, Sidewalks and Stormwater 3. While there are a multitude of possibilities for determining the order for filling these vacancies, staff suggests filling the vacancies in alphabetical order and in order of term end where applicable. For example, ADA 2018, ADA 2019, ADA 2020, etc. This ensures each council member will get to nominate individuals for seats on 2 separate committees and eliminates the potential for a perception of favoritism, etc. Additionally, staff would like to remind the council that the selection process for nominations adopted by the governing body in Resolution 1984 makes representation from each council member on each committee difficult, if not impossible, to achieve. Due to the new methodology adopted and the fact that Citizens Advisory Committee members selected by previous governing body members are still seated, no attempt was made to strategize a course of action that would allow for equal representation, as any such efforts, even if achieved, would be undermined by future nominations following the outlined process. Finally, for housekeeping purposes, Resolution 1984 requires that each Citizens Advisory Committee have an ex officio member. Based on review of previous council meeting minutes and/or video, the governing body appears to have reached consensus on ex officio assignments as follows: Council President Moore, Streets, Sidewalks, and Stormwater; Council Vice President Melton, Citizens Police Advisory Committee; Mayor Shute and Councilman Gregorcik, EDAC; Councilman Winters, Parks and Recreation. While there was discussion regarding Mr. Baldwin serving as the ex officio member for the ADA Committee, this does not appear to have ever been formally decided. And so that would be your final decision point, and that is all I have for now.
Amy, just for clarification, could you go back over the ex officio? I understood Baldwin's not assigned to anything. Melton was Citizens Police Academy.
Yes, sir.
The mayor and myself are EDAC, and who are the other for, where is council president at?
S3. Streets, Sidewalks, and Stormwaters.
Yes.
And Councilman Winters is Parks and Recreation.
Okay. I'm sorry. Thank you.
We've got G3, you're on S3.
Okay, thank you very much, Amy. Appreciate it. Any public comments on presentation item number 2? Okay, with no one coming forward, let's dig into this, folks.
Let me go back to the first one.
All right, so we've got, I would tend to want to follow the recommendation of the staff with regard to the term expiring in August 2020, which would, or I'm sorry, 2020, I should say, in general. And that would be the last position on the ADA committee, which is currently vacant, would be eliminated. The same for the position on the Street, Sidewalks, and Stormwater, or Public Works Advisory Committee. The other 3 are a little bit of a pickle because those particular positions are being held by individuals who are currently serving on committees. Now, the question I had, Amy, and one for the assembled body is, I would think that individuals who are eliminated from the committees because of a reduction in the number of members should be given the opportunity to go into the pool to be assigned to another committee.
If I may, I believe they all are expired terms right now. So they are currently seated, but only because the previous council provided direction to continue that until we refilled the vacancies. So to say they're currently seated is technically correct, but their term is expired and they actually should no longer be seated. They are only being seated because of that previous direction. Otherwise, they would have been removed from the committees already.
So the question is, because there's nothing in these that says that they can only serve one term.
Correct.
Is there a directive or is there a consideration by the governing body to basically keep these individuals in those committee spots for the next term that expires in 2020?
If I may, sir, I believe that would be the decision of the council member who was assigned to appoint that position.
That's great.
Based on what the resolution says and how you discuss the policy.
Otherwise, you're going to box yourself in.
Sure, no problem. But we know who those current people are that are serving, so those individuals just go into the pool then, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Or we could ask them.
Okay, all right. So we will remove one of the members of the Citizen Police Advisory Committee. The term expiring in November. Actually, both of them will be removed, so.
Yes, they would both be removed unless whoever nominates for those positions chooses to renominate them. It's possible that they would be nominated, or it's possible that it may be an entirely different individual that's nominated.
Okay. Well, one of these individuals on Citizens Police, for example, is not going to come back to that committee.
Right.
So.
Just moved out.
Exactly. All right. So. Okay. Well, that's not going to be a problem. Yeah, the 2020 term, I don't think that's going to be a problem at all. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think all of them that are
Todd?
extended.
That sounds good to me, yeah.
All right. So that decision point's been crossed. The next one. All right, so C1 or another seat selected by the council, and we could do a random number generator if we wanted to, or we could just say, you know what, let's give the newbies the first crack.
Here. I think that's a good sign of leadership.
And start with
newbie.
Is that all right with you guys?
All right with me.
And I'd allow Mr. Baldwin go first if you'd like, and I'll go
The thing is, if
second.
we're doing random, or not random, but in sequential order, we have to start with you,
Okay.
Randy, and then move on. But I don't think we're selecting tonight anyway, are we?
You would not be selecting tonight. All you'll be
okay.
selecting is what order you want to fill the vacancies
We have
in
to have a
then.
pool.
But
We
you
have to-
each pick two. Mr. Gregorczyk would get the next selection following this initial selection of these 10 vacancies that we currently have.
I'll take it.
All right,
So that will be seat 5 that you will be starting
we'll
with
start
then?
with C5.
Okay.
Before you said that, which I don't necessarily have a problem with, my suggestion was, since Lee was the last one and he is council president, that you would start to the right of him. That's what I was going to say before you said that.
I think we've already chosen what we want to do.
Yeah, but the only thing is, Rich has already had a chance to select.
Well, right, but if you go through this twice, most likely, that next time, when it came back to Rich
Yep.
might not be here anyway. It depends on that election. So you might have new blood there anyway.
That's something that we.
If I may, you'll have many expirations this year as
Yes.
well.
Yeah, based on the dates.
Based on, because even if you want to keep that council member, they still need to be, or the Citizens
Yeah.
Advisory Committee, you still need to
Yep.
nominate
Hassle of
them.
2018 Novembers.
Yep.
That's true.
So I don't see a problem here on this. I really don't. And actually, November 2018 is the, no, it would be street sidewalks and stormwater would be August of 2018. So, yeah, that would be the next ones to be filled. Okay, so we've got that one. We'll start with C5 unless anybody else has any objections. Okay. Decision point 3, alphabetical, then by, I don't have a problem with that. I don't know if anybody else does, but.
I was thinking it would just be in the order of expiration regardless of committee.
Well, at that point, yes, but this is just for the first round. So we got 10 positions to fill for this first round, and all of them are open.
Right, but some of them are November, some of them are August, some of them are December. So what Amy said was ADA 17, 18, 19. Right? I'm saying you just put them all in order of when the expiration is, and you start from there, and it's kind of random as to which committee it is.
So we have
So basically on
118 in ADA.
By date only.
Mhm. So we got 1 in 18, and then 2 in 17 on Citizen Police Advisory. So what we're talking about is starting with CPAC.
Those should be 2020, sir. At the bottom of
Oh,
that sheet, it
2020,
says that the
correct.
date shifts to
You're correct,
2020.
You're correct. So we go 2018 ADA, 2018 EDAC, 2018 for street sidewalks and stormwater for 2, 2019 ADA, 2019 Parks and Rec, 2020 ADA, 1 on Citizen Police Academy for 2020, 2 EDAC for 2020, 1 for Parks and Rec for 2020, and 1 for street sidewalks and stormwater for 2020.
There's mine.
Correct? Is that what we're talking about? So yearly and then by alphabetical.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good. Mark, you drew the short straw on this one.
Evidently.
You're gonna be on the ADA committee.
Nothing against the ADA, guys.
No, and understand, it's a vital committee, and it interfaces both Parks and Rec as well as Public Works, so it's important. And it keeps you from having to just spend all your time with utilities.
Right. It's a lot easier to say than streets, sidewalks, and stuff.
Yeah,
That's 3,
ADA.
that's 3.
Yeah, three letters. So.
The only caveat to that is if I am going to the utility one, the meeting's at the exact same time. The third. Or no, it's not. It's on the third Thursday, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, never mind.
Yep. All right.
All right. So I will recap your decisions for you in an email. I will send that email out to you, letting you know which nominations you will be responsible for.
Great.
So per Section 3B of Resolution 1984, each council member will submit to the city clerk within 7 days an individual for appointment, along with the information about the individual as name, address, and a paragraph explaining their interest in serving. Upon receipt of the information, I will submit the information to the governing body, who will then have 7 days to consider the recommendations, after which the final recommendation is placed on the consent agenda for approval at the next regular city council meeting. Given this timeline, the nominations will appear on either the April 16th, 2018 agenda and or the May 7th, 2018 agenda, depending when the information is received to myself and then disseminated to you.
Great.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Okay. Now it's time for public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. We've had quite a few public hearings already. Only caveats are that we have a 5-minute timer over here, and also no personal attacks, no profanity. With that, I will open the floor for public comments. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Dustin Martin, 1160 Commodore. First off, Jason, congratulations on the promotion. Being a coach with Parks and Rec and a, let's call it a temporary employee, depending on the season, I can't be more excited. Cheryl, that was a great hire. I would have liked to see it happen a lot faster. I think it's great that we promote within, and I know we were looking at possibly outside, but if you've got a candidate that strong, I say next time we jump on it. Now that we do have a person in his position, I'd like to remind council, at one point Mr. Baldwin brought it up, board member Chapman brought it up, school board, about making sure that we get a committee together so we don't have same issues we had during basketball season. As everyone's aware, they're adding turf to their baseball, softball fields. So it's only a matter of time before possibly more activities will be used on that. So if we can use our facilities along with the Parks and Rec and the school board can, use facilities together, I think that'd be a great idea. Anyway, I did want to congratulate Jason. Can't wait to move forward and see what he's got in store. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dustin.
Thank you, Doug.
Anyone else? With no one else coming forward, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Is there any member of the body who wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Number 3?
Councilman Gregorczyk wishes to remove number 3. Anyone else? All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 1, 2, and 4.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Baldwin, second Moore, that we approve consent agenda items 1, 2, and 4. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Consent agenda items 1, 2, and 4 pass. Councilman Gorsuch, what are your questions on consent agenda item number 3?
Real simple. Is that just an unforeseen item, Jason or Cheryl?
Yes, it was. Excuse me. It was an item.
Is this your first time on the speaker?
Am I a little too close and too loud? Let's try this again. It is an overseen item that was done with Water's Edge and Design. Carruthers got in there, and when they were getting ready for the install, they looked at the bid specs, and they noticed these valves needed to be put in place in order to shut off water flow. Just in case we had any maintenance issues down the road, they wanted to make sure we had those measures in.
So it's a backup, or is it just within the primary?
It's within the primary.
Okay. Thank you, Jason.
And excellent first use of the microphone. I appreciate that.
Hear, hear.
All right. Anything else?
No, sir. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
That's no problem. I'll entertain a motion on consent agenda
So
item number
moved.
3.
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Moore, that we approve consent agenda item number 3. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda item number 3 passes. We have no committee recommendations tonight. We have no old business. So we'll move on to new business. Consider new business item number 1. Consider adopting a resolution amending resolution number 1980 of the City of Gardner, Kansas, in connection with the authorization of general obligation bonds of the city to pay the cost to equip a public building, municipal pool equipment. Laura Gurley.
Hello, this is entirely a housekeeping item, given that you just approved the change order for the pool, and I have to have a little cushion that goes to a not to exceed to include financing. I need you to give me a little more cushion. So previously, you authorized not to exceed $200,000 in future general obligation bonds. If you would please raise that to $210,000 so I may continue my business.
Okay. Thanks, Laura. Any public comment on new business item number 1? Hearing none. Questions, comments from the body, including you, Mr. Winters?
None from me.
Okay. All right. With no other comments, I will entertain a motion on new business item number 1.
Do we have a quorum?
I'm sorry?
Do we have a quorum?
Oh, my goodness. We do not have a quorum right now.
Time out for a second.
So we cannot do a motion or a second because we lost a council member.
He's in the building.
He's in the building, but he's not in the chambers. Ah, here he comes.
So moved.
Mr. Gregorczyk.
I second the return of Randy.
We did not have quorum when you left. All right.
There's a motion.
There is a motion. Do I ever hear a second?
Second.
Motion Moore, second Baldwin, that we consider adopting resolution amending resolution number 1980 of the City of Gardner, Kansas, in connection with the authorization of general obligation bonds of the city to pay the cost to equip a public building, municipal pool equipment. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Oh wait, this is a resolution. We have to have a vote.
Roll call.
Yes, roll call vote from the clerk. Sorry about that. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Winters?
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilman Gregorczyk?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Moore?
Yes.
New business item number 1, resolution number 1980 passes. Boy, I'm not on my game tonight. New business item number 2, consider a request for a waiver of the distance limitation to allow for the sale of cereal malt beverages within 200 feet of a school, church, or library during the Festival on Trails event to be held June 8th and 9th, 2018. Hello, Amy.
Hello, sir. Festival on the Trails Association is requesting an area to sell cereal malt beverages for their event to be held June 8th and 9th, 2018. Revision of the Gardner Municipal Code on March 19, 2007 allows for the consumption on public property for this event with an off-premises cereal malt beverage license being required. Location is to be on Shawnee Street, just east of Elm. Only 3.2% beer will be served with the gates of the beer garden, and all cereal malt beverages will be required to be consumed in that area. Appropriate interior security will be stationed at both entrances. The hours of operation for the beer garden will be 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. Since the location of the proposed beer garden is within 200 feet of a school, church, or library, Gardner Elementary School, the First Presbyterian Church of Gardner, and the Johnson County Public Library, the Festival on the Trails Association must petition and be granted a waiver of distance limitation by the council. The waiver will be for June 8th and 9th, 2018 only, with the following restrictions: the location as shown in the map provided to you in your packet, and the hours of operation for the beer garden from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. You did hold a public hearing for this earlier this evening.
Thank you, City Clerk. Any public, actually, we won't have public comment because a public hearing was already held on this item, so we will move on to questions or comments from the governing body.
I'm good.
Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Moore, second Baldwin, that we grant a request for a waiver of distance limitation to allow for the sale of cereal malt beverages within 200 feet of a school, church, or library during the Festival on the Trails event to be held June 8th and 9th, 2018. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? New business item number 2 passes. New business item number 3, consider approving a general retailer special event permit allowing Festival on the Trails Association to sell cereal malt beverages for consumption on the premises for their event to be held June 8th and 9th, 2018. This smacks of a housekeeping item, Amy.
It is a housekeeping item, sir. All this is allowing them to have a general retailer special event permit. Same location. Their application has been reviewed, found nothing that would prohibit the issuance of this license. You will notice that in new business items 4 and 5, which are coming up next, these are combined. It's because that is in-house versus this being an external organization.
Great. Thanks, Amy. This was not subject to the public hearing, so I will open up the floor for public comment. Anyone wishing to make public comment, come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, I would ask for any questions or comments from the body. I did have one question. It was for the police chief. Chief Pruding, from the standpoint of the special event, what's our typical protocol for these from the standpoint of security coverage? I think that was mentioned in the previous item, but.
Yeah, I don't have the overtime numbers, but we generally staff it with assistance from the sheriff's office.
Okay.
I can get the numbers, I can send them out from what we did last year.
That'd be good. I think it's been pretty constant, pretty consistent from year to year, so.
And Mayor, is the fire department represented in, during that event, or?
I believe fire protection is actually committed to that, so yes.
Okay.
And I believe we have the battalion chief
Yeah, he's
back
back
in the
there.
back, so he can speak on that if he wishes.
Yes, normally we have at least one of the chiefs is usually in attendance.
Okay,
And,
great.
Usually we'll have a crew or a couple of crews on standby as well.
Great. Thank you, sir. All right. Is there anything else? All right, I will entertain a motion on new business item number 3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Gregorczyk, second more, that we approve a general retailer special event permit allowing Festival on the Trails Association to sell cereal malt beverages for consumption on the premises for their event to be held June 8th and 9th, 2018. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? New business item number 3 passes.
Right, thank you. Now I'm going to go away.
All right. New business item number 4, consider a request for a waiver of distance limitation and special event permit to allow for the sale of retail liquor and cereal malt beverages within 200 feet of a school, church, or library during the Smoke on the Trails barbecue competition to be held September 28th and 29th, 2018 at Celebration Park. New Parks and Rec Director Jason Bruce at the microphone for the first time at the podium. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
That wasn't awkward.
I have used this microphone before, so I'm a little more comfortable than that one. So I apologize for the static in people's ears at home. Sorry, this is a housekeeping issue similar to what we just covered. Staff is requesting the area to sell retail alcohol and cereal malt beverage during our event for the Smoke on the Trails barbecue competition that will be held September 28th and 29th at Celebration Park. The selling of Alcohol and CMBs will be located in Celebration Park within the baseball parking lot area. I know that a map was provided for you for that. In addition to this, the governing body will need to approve a permit for a special event at Celebration Park pursuant to Chapter 5.20.040 of the City Code. Hours of operation will be from 3 to 11. Excuse me. And since the location of the beer garden is within 200 feet of the school, council must approve the waiver of the distance limitation.
Great. Thanks, Jason.
Any questions?
Any public comment? Actually, we don't have public comment on this because we've already granted the waiver of distance limitation. We haven't granted it yet, but we had a public hearing on it, so my apologies. So I will open it up to questions from the body.
Yeah, I have the same question, especially with respect to the barbecue piece of it. Will the fire department be, thank you. I know the police will have a strong presence. I saw you guys out there last year, so I began to walk a fine line. I did.
Which line did you walk?
The white one.
Oh, the white one. Okay, good. Excellent. No surprise. Okay, let's go move on. Any other comments or questions? All right. I would entertain a motion on new business item number 4.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Moore, second Gregorczyk, that we grant a request for a waiver of distance limitation, a special event permit to allow for the sale of retail liquor and cereal malt beverages within 200 feet of a school, church, or library during the Welcome the Trails barbecue competition to be held September 28th and 29th, 2018 at Celebration Park. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed, any abstention? New business item number 4 passes. New business item number 5, consider request for waiver of distance limitation and a special event permit to allow for the sale of retail alcohol and cereal malt beverages within 200 feet of a school, church, or library during the Craft Beer and Wine Festival to be held September 28, 2018 at Celebration Park. Jason.
So in conjunction with our Smoke on the Trails barbecue event, the Friday night we will have our Craft Beer and Wine Festival that will be held in Celebration Park Baseball Complex. Similar restrictions we're seeking for our special permit to use for this event as well. Hours of operation will be 3 to 11 in our beer garden area. So this is another housekeeping issue for you guys as well.
Great. Thanks, Jason. We already had a public hearing on this waiver of distance limitation request as well. Questions, comments from the body? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion on new business item number 5.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Baldwin, second Moore, that we grant a request for a waiver of distance limitation and special event permit to allow for the sale of retail alcohol and cereal malt beverages within 200 feet of a school, church, or library during the Craft Beer and Wine Festival to be held September 28th, 2018 at Celebration Park. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstention? New business item number 5 passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. New business item number 6, consider a recommendation to condemn an electric easement for Circuit 41 backfeed project. Gonzalo Garcia. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. The Circuit 41 backfeed project was it was a 2017 project. I'll give you a brief description. The project consists on installing an overhead connection between 2 existing electric feeder circuits that are dead end. Circuit 41 ends on West Cherokee Street and South Poplar Street, which is the First Field subdivision. Circuit 41 ends 900 feet west of Orchlands, and that circuit feeds the businesses around Sheens Crossing and the Nike School. On April 6, 2017, the UAC approved a recommendation to City Council for the implementation of this project. The City Council approved the project on May 1st, 2017. We had an initial meeting with the owners of the Fairfield subdivision on early April, but they actually rejected the proposal. Then we met again on August 4th, and they did not make any commitment to grant the easement. Then on September 22nd, we received an email indicating their willingness to work with the city. At that point, the city approached North Point, which they have warehouses east of the city limit. And I approached them and said, can you grant the easements on your side? And they said, no, because we're making commitments to Edgerton. So that didn't work. Then during the January 4th, 2018 UAC meeting, I did an update on the project, and the commission discussed the possible condemnation of the easement. Then on January 21st, 2018, Mayor Shute and City Administrator Harrison Lee met with the landowners, and they said, yeah, they were willing to grant the easement, but they wanted to rezone their land first. It's been more than close to 3 months now, and they have not made any petition to do a rezoning. So during the last staff update, I asked for direction, and my recommendation is to initiate the easement condemnation process so we can finish the project.
Okay. Thanks, Gons. Appreciate it. Any public comment on new business item number 6? Hearing none. Questions, comments from the body? Move forward. Okay. All right. With that, I will entertain a motion on new business item number 6.
So moved.
Second. Motion Moore, second Baldwin, that we approve recommendation to condemn an electric easement for Circuit 41 backfeed project. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? New business item number 6 passes.
Thank you, sir.
Gons. Appreciate it. It's time for council updates. Staff, do you have anything for council? I will start with Michael Kramer this evening.
No, sir.
Okay, Larry,
No, sir, not tonight.
all right, thanks, Larry. I know. Jason Bruce, have anything?
Let me try this again. RFPs went out on March 21st for the golf course irrigation plan. We'll be opening sealed bids April 4th at 1 p.m. here at City Hall. We hope to, April 16th meeting, bring council recommendation for the irrigation system at the golf course, as well as that night hope to bring the contract with Great Life. Staff's very close, working with the city attorney, as well as Great Life finalizing that contract.
It's actually done. We arrived at final terms on the operating agreement on Thursday. So.
Okay.
And we'll get that. I know you wanted it well in advance of the meeting, so we'll get that to you as soon as possible.
Great. Excellent. All right,
No,
guys.
sir.
All right. Chief?
No, sir.
City Clerk?
No, sir.
Laura Gorley?
No, sir.
Ryan? No. Okay. Cheryl?
Yes. So on the 28th of March, I had an opportunity to meet with staff, with the school superintendent and her staff, and we had an opportunity to talk about the development activity that we presented to you in the growth management workshop as they are looking at planning for schools. They have some insight with the activity that the city is planning. We also talked about Councilmember Baldwin's request to get the school board and the governing body together. At the time that Councilman Baldwin made the request, he asked that we consider doing it in April. I presented that, and the superintendent has requested that we consider June, given the school's busy schedule this time of year. So what I am asking you tonight is to consider moving it, based on her request, to a date in June.
Would that give us enough time to figure out things for fall sports?
Jason, what do you think of that?
I think it would. Yes.
Okay.
How about budget constraints?
You mean depending on what comes out of it?
You mean if we have to
Will we have
pay-
time to figure things out?
Right.
I mean, obviously sooner would be better. We said April, she said June. I mean, we could always try for May.
Yeah, I don't
But
think.
May's
Well, I
busy
think May
for
is probably
school.
really tough with
So-
graduation.
So
Yes.
And the end of the year. And really with budget, I think we'd be fine because you aren't going to adopt it until August and we're going to start the public hearings. So it'd be tight. Finance director would probably, you know,
She is.
to make all kinds of faces, but it can be done.
I guess my only concern is if, the June meeting is an initial meeting and then, we all have to come back and now it's July and now we have another question and.
I mean, unless you're talking about something really significant changing wise, it's not going to matter.
Okay, good.
So are we talking early June, like June 1st or the?
I can certainly
Yeah, I mean.
try it.
I'd push for early in June.
Yeah.
Okay. So with your consensus tonight, I will go. We are scheduled to meet again so we can talk about the agenda. We agreed at the initial meeting that the two of us would jointly prepare the agenda, and so
Great.
we're going to be working on that together. We've already come up with some items that we both agreed should be a part of the agenda, and so I'll talk about the date.
So Mayor, will you be involved in setting that agenda and the
Yes.
items? Because I'm sure that
Yes.
conversely, they would be.
I have a personal investment in this, as does the school board president, so yes, I would be, I'm very much interested in being a part of that. Absolutely.
And if you all have items that you would like for me to talk with the superintendent about, please email them to me because I'm meeting with her so that we can jointly at a staff level at least get something drafted. So if you could just email me anything that you think would be important.
I just would want to see the agenda once it's.
Absolutely.
Yeah, first, and then.
Right.
Yep.
Add or subtract.
I will just state that I'm all for moving it as soon as we can in June, but I may not be there depending. I got a baby due June 1st, so if it's the 4th,
Can you hold that
who
one
knows?
off?
So
Another
we'll
one?
see.
Yeah.
So
Wow,
we'll see.
Mark.
But
So
I will
middle,
make
so
all
middle of
efforts to be
June.
there.
So middle of June would be better.
No.
No, early
Okay.
June.
No, early June would probably be better. I know the 2 a.m. daddy routine very well.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I did have one thing that.
Yes.
Tomorrow is the public meeting for the Gardner Road and I-35 interchange, which Danica thankfully reminded me of. And so I'll remind the audience.
Yes, yes. You kind of beat me to that, Michael. I was going to mention it, but thank you, thank you. Okay, anything else, Cheryl?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay. Council, anybody, any updates for staff? I'm going to start with council president because he never goes first.
I have nothing.
And then he has nothing. Okay. Todd Winters.
I have nothing.
Wow. Councilman Baldwin.
I just have one question. For City Clerk Waller, is there, since we do public comment after every business item, do we have to have the public hearings at the very beginning for all those variances on the, was that statutorial?
It's part of your governing body rules of procedure.
Right.
That order the agenda.
Okay. It seemed like since we already do that, we could have disposed of them.
I could add, though, that the public hearings we did tonight are on cereal malt beverage items, and we control the process for how those are issued. And so if you wanted to look at a different process for the issuance of cereal malt beverage licenses, you could.
It happens every year.
Right about this time?
Yeah.
I was curious about that. I mean, is that something that could be done at a staff level?
It's your process.
I think last year when we had the same discussion back when we were doing the festival and the trails approvals, we were talking about doing an administrative process to grant those waivers. And, I know that we talked about it, it kind of went on the back burner and then it just kind of disappeared, but
I would support staff approving those and it coming to the consent agenda.
Yes,
So we
I
have a
agree.
final
Mhm.
say, and then, of course, we could dispense with the public hearing there. The public still has the opportunity to pull it off the agenda. We don't have to open and close
Yeah, and through the consent agenda, A, could move a little bit quicker, or B, if you had feedback from those citizens,
That's
you
right.
could pull it off to discuss.
That's correct.
So I would support that.
I would too. It would cut down on the number of times I have to hear the word cereal malt beverage also. It makes me very thirsty.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, I think that's the whole point of the Beer and Wine Festival, is it not?
Makes me hungry and thirsty.
Exactly. Okay, so point, we're gonna work on that? All right, great. Thank you. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay, well, I don't have very many things. I was going to mention the planning meeting tomorrow for the interchange proposals. That is going to be happening over at the Gardner Library, starting at 4:30, correct?
5:30.
5:30, and we're ending at 6:30. And please come out, give your feedback on those, because of the 3 proposals that I saw, there's definitely, to me, some definite winners in that, but would love to hear the public's input on that. It's very important that you come out and give your voice. That's going to impact all of South Gardner. So please come out. It's your opportunity. Other than that, I believe that we've got the downtown corridor plan coming through Planning Commission as well, and that's going to be coming to the next meeting, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, the
Yep.
public recommendations coming to you from the Planning Commission. It'll be on the next meeting.
All right, great.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it. Anyone else have anything to add?
I'd love to go.
All right. Oh, then I will
You may
entertain a
go.
motion to adjourn.
No, I mean, I've got some comments.
Oh, go. Thanks. You said you wanted to go.
Well, I appreciate your literal translation.
Yes, Randy.
So I've got a couple of things. First, I wanted to say that I attended the Chamber of Commerce board meeting, and I think that was very insightful. That's where I learned about their proactive measure to go ahead and build up some reserve funds and understand how that's going to help them down the road. Again, I support the Chamber of Commerce and their request. But Mayor, I wanted to get a couple of updates from you as you spoke publicly at the last meeting. In particular, and in this order, I'd like to get an update with the meeting that you had with the governor. Second one, I'd like to understand the update with day 3. And then an update with the State of the County address. I believe you attended all 3 of those. I was just wondering, for the betterment of the citizens, what that update would be, and then I'd have a follow-up question to one of those 3 items.
Okay. Which of the 3? Just
You can start with the meeting with the governor.
Okay. Well, the meeting with the governor, I think, was very productive.
Okay.
We met with the governor, the Secretary of Transportation, the 2 senators that serve this area, as well as as our representative, Bill Sutton, and also we had Greg Smith, who's the County Sheriff's Liaison for Public Safety to the legislature. We did not get a $20 million check written out to us, so that did not happen.
So no money, but what is the what's the promise? on
What
the
we
horizon?
did get was an assurance from the governor that this would be looked at, it would be a priority project, that he wants regular updates from the Secretary of Transportation. So that's happening on a regular basis now. So it's going to be on the front of that plate going forward. What I told the governor is that I know that there's no money right now before 2021, but we're looking to try to accelerate that timeline. And so he did agree. It is a public safety issue as well as an eco-dev issue. So that's where we stand.
Okay, and the numbers that you guys talked about, and again, I wasn't at the meeting, I'm just looking for just a fair
Yeah.
update, just as we've asked our staff. So you're looking at I-35 and Gardner Road interchange at $3.6 million, Waverly Road reconstruction 175th at $1.3 million, rounding up by $5,000, and Gardner Road Bridge over I-35 for 1.6. Is that what you discussed?
No.
That they would roll? Because I looked at their depleted state budget, and I don't know where they're going to get this money.
Well, again, they are spending money, Randy. They are spending money right now on multiple projects. I believe there was just money allocated, as a matter of fact, for South Homestead Lane past I-35 for the Kubota Phase 2 of LPKC. So there is money.
And that's attached to the leverage that that economic driver is driving. Would that be fair? Okay.
I would agree.
The next, go ahead, I apologize,
I was
Mayor.
gonna say the total amount for that, for all of that, from the standpoint of the Gardner Road interchange area, is somewhere on the order of $20 million.
Okay.
That depends on what interchange proposal they decide to go with, and I mean they, meaning us, decide to move forward with along with KDOT. But that's what we're looking at in terms of an overall number for everything, which includes the approach ramps, the street improvements, signalization, and the bridge deck.
Okay. If I might just suggest, and I don't know if staff, I don't know if it was Michael Kramer, but I brought it to Cheryl's attention that there is a grant called the Transportation Investment Generating Economic Recovery, or TIGER.
Yep.
And the federal government is looking to invest about $500 million. I did a little research, not a lot.
Yep.
And I see that those grants seem to be going to more rural areas. I don't know that we're rural. I don't know that we're urban. I think we're right in the middle of that gray space.
We're Edge City.
Based on proximity. And we don't have a lot of leverage with respects to that economic driver that Edgerton has. I don't want to go down that road, no pun intended. But I would recommend that we maybe look at that TIGER grant as a mechanism to maybe encourage our state government to redistribute the money.
And actually, it's good you brought it up, because we did discuss Infra, which is another federal program, as well as TIGER, and the ERA program. And both of those, I believe that the Department of Transportation gave us enthusiastic response to pursuing those. I believe the grant season for those, for the 2019 grant year, starts up pretty soon, in the next three or so months. And so we do have a grant writer. We will be working on getting those grants finalized. And actually, from the standpoint of TIGER, we're in a really good position.
I would agree. That's why I brought it up.
Because of our very close proximity to LPKC, and the fact that that is designated as a freight corridor moving forward in the transportation plan for the region. So yes,
same subject of grants. Would the CARS program not be a viable option at 175th and Madison? I'm sorry, Waverly Road reconstruction from 175th to Madison?
I believe we already have CARS money for that.
I believe that is in.
I couldn't find that to be true. That's what I'm asking.
It depends. And I apologize, I don't remember the year on that project, but 175th Street and Madison, is that what you said?
No,
which would be confusing.
Waverly.
Okay,
I
so,
said that wrong, I'm sorry.
So we are using CARS funding for a 175th Street project that we have, our current project that runs along 175th Street from Poplar to Waverly. And I believe it's scheduled to be used also from there north to Madison.
The Waverly shows $612,000 from CARS.
Okay.
Yep. And then and just for clarification purposes, we actually have 2 CARS grants that we're utilizing. One is for 175th to Waverly, which was actually a delay from last year. I think they rolled that money back into 2018. This year, we've also got CARS money for South Gardner Road, down from
Kane Street south.
From Kane Street all the way down to the interchange.
Or actually, now it's from Grand south.
Yeah, Grand
south to the interchange. You're correct, because we did do to Grand last year.
And was that CAR funding procured last year, or was that this year?
You know, it's an ongoing project, and so we keep our project list updated with them, and some of it was obtained in 17 for 18.
Okay, fair enough. The meeting with Day 3, how did that go, and what are the details that you're able to share?
I can't share a lot of details, but it did go well. We shared our vision for that area. We also talked with the developer on plans that they have. Again, I can't get deep into the weeds on this one, but we did have a productive discussion. We have agreed to meet again to talk through some other options.
And it's a viable project then?
Right now,
Yes, sir.
well, the initial development that was supposed to go on the backside of that has been pulled off the table.
Okay.
At the request of that developer.
So when you say pulled off the table, suspended, or what are we talking about?
That particular project has been
Okay.
canceled, discontinued.
Okay. And then the update for the State of the County address, how did that go? What did we learn? Synergies?
Well, I cannot speak to that because I was not at that particular event.
Can we,
Okay.
Yes.
can we do this kind of thing, like on a one-on-one basis or something? I mean, these council updates are supposed to be things that you're bringing, suggestions that you have for staff. This is kind of dragging on, so.
Well, that's the last I have of it, Lee, but the mayor mentioned this publicly, and I had numerous emails from constituents, and I'm just trying to provide the feedback that they're hungry for.
Fair enough.
But I agree with your point that it is normally more directed at actionable items or following up on prior actionable items. But under the circumstances, I felt it a viable
We have a gentleman on
reason.
the phone is what I'm concerned with, and he's with his father at a hospital, and it would be cool if we could
I didn't know that, sir.
wrap this up.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Fair enough. I will conclude.
Yes, did you have something, Todd?
No, I'm okay.
Sorry about that, Todd. I didn't realize the circumstances.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
All right. Anything else? Okay. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Motion Moore, second Baldwin, that we adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned.
Hey, Lee, if I would have known that in advance, a little communication goes a long way.
Yeah, I know.